morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. This proceeding is being broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. Board of Water and Power Commissioners, please say present for roll call. Commissioner KATZ? Present. Commissioner LEHRER?
Present.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Present.
Commissioner McGraw? Commissioner NEEMAN BRADY?
Present.
For board members, a quorum is present. Madam President.
Thank you. I have I do have opening remarks. I'd like to, and a couple of videos I'd like to show at the top of the meeting. The Department of Water and Power has, one of the, let me say it this way, one of the unique pleasures of being a part of an organization that is municipally owned is that we get to spend a lot of time out in the community of Los Angeles. And when we do that, we are incredibly well received. It is not only part, it's not only part of it's not just, part of our service, it's part of our mission. And there's nothing like being the city's utility and meeting people out among the community and having people talk to you about how much they like the department, having them talk to you about whatever service that they're getting or not getting that's exactly right, introducing them to various services and programs, bringing one of our big props like the trucks and things of that nature. Over the last several months, while we've been out and busy, we've had some pretty well-produced and incredibly fast turnarounds on video of our interactions in the community. And I wanted to say thank you to the videographers who just do incredible work in pulling all of that together, to Serena Beltran, to Ocean, I can't. Oh. I just can't. I'm so bad with last names. So I will spell Ocean, your last name, MANOUKIAN, to Jason, who is here today and will be presenting, and Reggie Brewer. I just want to say thank you so very much. You guys and gal do an amazing job out there. The entire department is incredibly well represented by your presence, and your work memorializes our activities in ways that allow us to share it, not just here at this board, but in other venues. It really does make a difference. And with that, I'd like to just play a couple of things this morning. First, there is Earth Day at Chatsworth Nature Preserve, which was delayed a little bit this year, but we finally got to it. And I know that we have a little evidence of our presence out there. And if that could be played at this time, I'd be really grateful.
To be out here at Chatsworth Nature Preserve today. It's such a special place, and seeing all of these families experiencing the nature that's here and all of the different native wildlife. We have red-tailed hawks soaring overhead and tiny little toads in the grass, and lots of different community organizations out here to support. So it's just a really special place and a really fantastic day.
Chatsworth Nature Preserve actually used to be a reservoir that was built back in 1919. It was part of our distribution system. But after the 1979 quake, the reservoir was taken out of service and not put back into service. As a matter of fact, then in 1997, the city council decided to make this the one and only nature preserve in the entire city of Los Angeles. So now we are the proud owners of this beautiful nature preserve that really we're just the caretakers. This is something for the entire city. And days like today is a great day because it gives us an opportunity to open our gates and let the community come in and see everything that is in here, all the wonderful nature that we have.
For those of you who haven't been out there on one of the few days that it's actually open to the public, I really encourage you to do that. It's a gorgeous piece of property, and we are really proud of our stewardship. Commissioner, did you have anything to say about the day?
Yeah, before I say anything about the day, I just want to say I'm really impressed on the turnaround on that video. This was just an event on Saturday, and the fact that you put it together and edited it so beautifully is really astonishing. So thank you so much to our comms team. But yes, it was a very special day, really wonderful to include the community. Chatsworth Nature Preserve is truly a very special place for the city of Los Angeles and contains some really sensitive and unique habitats within the city boundary and contributes to our LA City biodiversity goals. It's also a very special place to our tribal partners who opened with the ceremony. So yeah, I definitely second your remarks. There's the winter solstice event as well. So that'll be the next opportunity for the community to join. And I hope that I'll see you there.
So I would like to mention that I was there with 6 family members. And a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old who got to touch snakes and got to hold all sorts of creatures and wanted to, we just had the best time. It was beautiful and inspiring to be there. And clearly this is something to really treasure over time, but ideally more people would be able to go there at different times. So it would be interesting to see how you can manage access, for school groups or, even environmental or engineering students who want to understand what it takes to manage this kind of a resource. So I did appreciate the DWP truck, electric truck that actually, I got a great explanation about how it was powering all the different devices that were being used throughout the site. And I got to hear a story by the Sacred Spaces Institute tribal leader, Tina, who told some beautiful stories that mesmerized the children about how coyotes have to eat, and therefore they have to eat sometimes birds and sometimes squirrels. And that's sad, but it has to happen. And, that is
trauma.
Exactly. So there you go.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I certainly would invite a presentation about the reserve and any opportunity that we might have to extend just a little more access. I know it's open for winter solstice. I've been there for that, and then for Earth Day. But to the extent that we could think about other ways of managing the property, that would be great. And then we know that the nation celebrated Juneteenth as a holiday this past a week ago Monday. And we also have a video, demonstrating or illustrating DWP's presence in terms of that citywide celebration. So if we could see that, that would be great.
Juneteenth, everybody. It is so important that LADWP be out and about. I'm so happy to be with our employees, with our customers, celebrating Freedom Day in Los Angeles. Also gives us an opportunity to tell people about the myriad of services and programs that we have that can support them. Just another beautiful day in Los Angeles. We are DWP. We power LA.
LADWP's presence in today's Juneteenth Festival showcases a number of our important customer programs. We're giving away air conditioning units. We're also showcasing our career opportunities to be a part of the team that powers Los Angeles. And we're also showcasing bill assistance programs, incentives, and rebates so that all of our customers can use energy more wisely and maintain affordability with their power and water bills. LA Department of Water and Power is also hosting an electric vehicle panel discussion entitled, Is EV for Me? The Future is Now. The panel discusses the future of clean energy for the city of Los Angeles, workforce development that's a part of that, and how you can be involved to help the city transform its renewable energy into the future. So with that, we're a happy and proud sponsor of Leimert Park Juneteenth 2023.
Thank you. And yeah, Greg really sold it.
That's fantastic.
No, the comms team is just doing a fantastic job. We really, really appreciate your efforts. And for all the department staff that goes out to man booths at these events and to really represent the department, to share information about the services that we provide, I just want to say that it makes a huge difference. So we appreciate you for that. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go to general public comment.
Good morning. Public comment is open at this time. Speakers, please be mindful that you will have 2 minutes to address the board. The first speaker is Emily Gable-Ludi, who will be followed by Tiffany Wong.
Thank you and good morning, and thank you for those presentations. I'm among many equestrians and hikers familiar with an area on the north side of Griffith Park adjacent to the LA River, which is an easement for DWP high-tension lines. This segment is routinely used by DWP for power washing the high-tension lines and maintaining the infrastructure. DWP has consistently been a good neighbor to us. We ride on the trail, we coexist with DWP, and when the power washing takes place, we're well aware of it and we're able to avoid the area. And I want to compliment DWP for the coordination that they did during the Headworks project with the horseback riders who go into Griffith Park. The issue along the trail, along that side of the LA River, is that it is a location that DWP routinely uses for power washing. And recently we observed one of the washing trucks negotiating its way onto that riverway. It's between Riverside Bridge and Forest Lawn on and off ramps. It took that power wash truck 4 times with an outrigger, someone standing outside, to help them maneuver that big truck onto this area. I'm bringing this to your attention because I believe that DWP has not been given an opportunity to weigh in on a small dead-end extension of a bike path along that same location. And I believe it's important because that particular path will not link to the Forest Lawn on and off ramps. It will dead end. There will be no outlet. There are no reliable plans for its extension to continue onto Forest Lawn Drive, and it will also be putting in a retaining wall that will further constrain the access of the water and power trucks to perform their routine maintenance. I have images that I can share with staff or others, not the best photograph in the world, but I think it'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I wanted to bring this to your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be here this morning.
The next speaker is Tiffany Wong, who will...
Excuse me. Staff would be over here to take the items that you want to pass out.
The next speaker is Tiffany Wong, who will be followed by Gloria Salinas.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Wong. I'm speaking on behalf of SCOPE today. SCOPE organizes community members in South LA and fights along frontline communities across LA who have been integral to winning utility debt relief and permanent shutoff protections for thousands in the city.
Thank you.
So these communities have been integral to winning utility debt relief and permanent shutoff protections for thousands in the city, including the motion passed this past November. We're excited that today's vote continues the work put in place from that November motion to ensure that no person is without water and power during extreme heat and cold conditions. As will be presented, we recognize National Weather Service alerts serve as important decision-making tools and acknowledge DWP's efforts to address data gaps. However, LA community members deserve strong shutoff protections that account for LA's legacy of redlining, urban heat island, and smog, especially as the climate crisis exacerbates these impacts. In particular, DWP should implement shutoff protections when the city faces wildfire smoke and severe air pollution. DWP should also pursue lower temperature and heat index thresholds in recognition of the intensifying LA heat and living conditions of our buildings. We also look forward to partnering with the utility to further define and take action on the November motion, including extending protections to all low-income customers and other vulnerable groups, and improving customer service and communications. Implementing shutoff protections and phasing out shutoffs is an important stopgap to realize a human right to water and power as DWP delivers on its commitment to debt relief and long-term affordability as a public institution. Thank you for your attention to and work on these important community priorities.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Gloria Salinas, who will be followed by Diana Yamura.
Hola, buenos días.
Good morning.
Mi nombre es Gloria Salinas.
My name is Gloria Salinas,
Soy residente del sur de Los Ángeles
and I'm a resident of the South LA,
y miembro de SCOPE.
and I'm a member of SCOPE.
Somos una comunidad muy impactada
We are a community that's been greatly impacted,
y hoy estamos aquí por la moción que están presentando, aunque llegaría mucha gente.
and now we are here regarding the motion that was presented that would help a lot of people.
Todavía no toma en cuenta una porción de sus clientes que serán afectados por el cambio climático.
It is still disregarding some part of your customers that will be affected by the climate change.
Pienso que siguen tomando decisiones que no toman en cuenta a nuestras comunidades que son las más vulnerables.
And I think that you're still making decisions that you're not taking into account our communities that are the most vulnerable.
Porque como hay mucho concreto, faltan muchos árboles, espacios verdes.
There's a lot of concrete, like cement, so we are lacking green spaces, we are lacking trees.
Las noches son muy calientes en nuestras comunidades.
The nights are very hot in our communities.
Y no podemos usar el aire acondicionado para no subir el costo de nuestras facturas.
And we cannot use the air conditioner because we don't want our bills to go up.
Nos afecta tanto y por eso no sé cómo nos pueden ayudar, cómo van a informar a nuestros clientes de todos los cambios que se van a hacer.
So I don't know how you can manage to help us and how to inform all the changes that are going to happen to all the customers.
Nos gustaría que nos mandaran información por correo para tener más información.
And we would like to receive more information through mail so we are more informed about everything.
Y pienso que pueden seguir adaptando protecciones más comprensivas, protecciones para nosotros. Se lo suplicamos.
So we beg you that if you can have more and all comprehensive measures that includes everybody.
No podemos sobrevivir sin un aire acondicionado más de 80 grados en nuestras comunidades. ¿Cómo es eso posible?
We cannot survive without air conditioning. More than 80 degrees in our community. How is that possible?
Yo les pido que las personas que tienen un puesto, que tienen el poder de hacer algo por nosotros, nos puedan apoyar.
So I am requesting that those who are in power, who has in their hands the power to do something for us, if you can please help us.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Gracias. The next speaker is Diana Yamura, who will be followed by Alicia Morales Perez.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Diana. I live in the city of Los Angeles. I'm a DWP customer, and I'm a community organizer for the Repower Coalition at LANE, the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. We're really glad to see this topic of extreme weather events come up since the passage of the no shutoffs motion last November. Through my coalition work, I've witnessed community members have been fighting hard since then and even before to put an end to these life-threatening shutoffs and demanding affordability. And we recognize this is an important, first step that must take place today. We also hope that this can build out to a seasonal moratorium, which will be critical for public health and human life as summers become more intense in LA. The National Weather Service heat warnings, watches, and advisories do not account for urban heat islands or severe air quality impacts, particularly concentrated in LA. So there are examples, such as the Arizona Corporation Commission adopting no summer shutoffs, LA really has the power and opportunity to lead the way and be an example for this kind of seasonal moratorium. We see the need for cooling and ventilation when people are faced with wildfire smoke and bad air pollution. And even with few cooling centers that do exist throughout the city and areas outside of folks' homes, people really do, and their kids and their families and their pets, really do deserve to be comfortable at home. We look forward to hearing more about the Commission's or the Board communication strategy, like Gloria mentioned, to inform DWP customers about these protections. We've made tremendous progress this year to ensure Angelenos have a right to water and power, and we're committed to working together towards no shutoffs and looking forward to seeing the relief for tenants. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Alicia Morales Perez, who will be followed by Jeremy Fuster.
Hello. Good morning, Board of Commissioners. My name is Alicia Morales Perez, also an LADWP customer and longtime Angeleno, and also a research and policy analyst with the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy and the Repower LA Coalition. I do want to express my gratitude for the work that the department has been doing, in particular bringing back protections for extreme weather events since the November no shutoffs motion. This is a really important step in providing relief for Angelenos in our city. And also, as Diana mentioned, that this will be hopefully a pathway to a seasonal moratoria. As mentioned, we're only experiencing more extreme heat, including the 7-day heat wave that we experienced last year in September. As mentioned, the National Weather Service doesn't include air quality and urban heat island effect. I particularly experienced this in 2020 during the pandemic when the Silverado fires, we were experiencing the ashes in Southeast Los Angeles, and we're told to close our windows for the purposes of bad air quality. And without AC and without being able to purify our air, that would have been a really horrible time for myself and my family, which again speaks to the impacts of bad air quality. I know that in less than a year, we've created broad and extensive protections for Angelenos, and we need, there's more that we can do. We're proud of the work that we've done so far with this department and with this board. but we also know that there's still more to do to find relief from extreme weather without folks having the fear of their water and power being shut off, and that we have to work as our climate continues to change, to see that this motion is implemented to its fullest, including hearing more about your communication strategy and disseminating information, and expanding and pairing these protections with affordability and energy efficiency programs. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jeremy Fuster, who will be followed by Dion Imami.
Oh, hi, Commissioners. My name is Jeremy Fuster. I'm also a volunteer with Repower LA Coalition and a volunteer with DSA Los Angeles' Climate Justice Coalition. I'm seconding the other members and thanking you for adopting this crucial shutoff moratorium, and also to consider other factors beyond the National Weather Service's guidelines when building parameters for this moratorium. I have fellow members of DSA-LA who live in the San Fernando Valley and areas like Pacoima and Sun Valley, areas that there's not a lot of tree canopy, not a lot of green space, not a lot of shade. And those urban heat islands are areas where when those heat waves come in, AC becomes even more crucial for them. And a lot of LA residents who would benefit from this moratorium live in those kinds of neighborhoods. So we hope that you will consider taking those neighborhoods into account when you continue working on this moratorium, and we're looking forward to hearing more on how this is going to pan out. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Would you like to comment for public comment or before item L7?
Item 7.
Okay. We'll call item L7 special for you. Thank you. The next speaker is Jerome Cohen.
That would be the same item.
Okay. Public comment is closed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the public comments this morning. We now have a briefing report by General Manager.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, board members. Just briefly bring a few other highlights to the board's attention. First of all, I'd like to announce that Dan Ashelman, who you were introduced to as the interim head of corporate safety, has been made permanent now. And so I don't think Dan's here. He's off doing his job. That's good. So, so Dan is taking over the Office of Corporate Health and Safety. In that role, he heads up the actual corporate health and safety group, also over power system safety, water system safety, the safety warehouse, and occupational health services and workers' comp are part of that as well. And occupational health services is our medical office. And then we've also added the Office of Emergency Management as a new role for him to head up under that. So thank you, Dan, for taking on those responsibilities. I also like to share that LaTanya Bogan-Jordan has joined the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion as our Director of Partnership Development and Strategic Engagement. She has a lot of experience in this area with her relationships with community groups, working in public affairs, and so LaTanya is here, so thank you for taking on that role. She also was recently in leadership roles as the founder and co-chair of the Women's Council and has been serving as the president of the Water and Power Employees Retirement Plan Board. And lastly, Mona Gurgis has been appointed the Interim Chief Information Officer, heading up our Information and Technology Services team. She's been here and in the city in IT work for over 30 years, and so we're glad to have her here helping us continue to execute our strategic technology plan. You mentioned the Juneteenth celebrations, so of course the Leimert Park was the big celebration that we were very proud to be a sponsor of and saw the video of. We also had two other events. On June 14th, we unveiled a photo exhibit on our L level, which is open to the public every day and will be on display through August. It's entitled "And Still We Rise." It's the imagery and important milestones of the Black experience in Los Angeles and the United States at large. We had a number of people who attended that event, and then we had a host, radio personality, Dominique DePrima, and music from Anthony, Jawan, Nikislan, and singers were there on the site. We used the services of a curator, Jill Moniz, and she provided her vision and expertise to really help us put a very nice and meaningful event together. So if I could, Reggie, can you play the video from that event, please?
welcome to And Still We Rise. It's a photo exhibition. It is also a reception and a moment to reflect on Juneteenth. Why does it say Freedom Day? Freedom Day is another name for Juneteenth. It's also called Emancipation Day.
The thing that jumped out at me was learning that Gil Lindsay was the first African-American employee of the Department of Water and Power. I was floored. I knew Gil Lindsay, and I had no idea. He also went on to become a member of Los Angeles City Council. It was just really an extraordinary insight into both his journey, but also into the ways in which this department has been and continues to be pivotal in providing opportunity for people of all walks of life in the city of Los Angeles.
And it's an honor to have on these walls of our own workplace here to remember how far we've come and our continued need to remember those who have struggled for equality and justice and to uplift those who still feel that struggle today.
So there is power in sharing this art exhibit, sharing the words that are being spoken today, the timeline, song. There's power in sharing our stories, sharing in one another's pain and our struggles.
This final image was one that I specifically requested because from my perspective, it so powerfully reasserts the history that we live. This image was taken on April 6th, 2023. It is an image of two young men, the two Justins, as they're now known, who were expelled from the Tennessee State House for using their voices to bring forward and to speak on behalf of children who had been murdered by gun violence in their community. And still we rise, and still we struggle, and still we fight.
I hate to spoil that moment by saying any more almost. It was a very meaningful event, and I think, as the city's, our second time we've celebrated Juneteenth as a holiday, it was very meaningful, and I think the department is, and I want to thank DEI office, we're working to get this right to celebrate the things that need to be celebrated and to make sure that we take note of important moments in history, important moments in our community, and certainly important moments to all the folks in our workplace. Lastly, on Juneteenth, the following day, on the 15th, two of our groups, the LADWP NSBE and the Water and Power African American Association, hosted an event in Gloria Molina Grand Park, a couple blocks down there, and that featured some cultural drum and dance performances, oration, musical accompaniment, and food trucks, and we had a nice turnout there to help celebrate as well, and also invited other members of the city family to participate in that. We saw a great video on Chatsworth. I just wanted to highlight that that was done not only by us, but in partnership with Santa Susana Mountain Park Association, Sky Valley Volunteers, and the Herp Connection, which used to be the Herpetology Society of Southern California. And they do bring out great animals and great things for people to see. We had over 3,000 people attend that event on Saturday afternoon, so it was a big deal. And so thank you, and thanks both of our commissioners for being there. Lastly, I want to turn it to Anselmo for a brief update on managing our runoff and the increasing warm weather in the Eastern Sierra and what that means for us.
Thank you, Marty. Good morning, commissioners. So we've been benefiting for the last couple of months about unusually cool weather in the Owens Valley. It's kind of helped us keep the snow in that form of snow. Unfortunately, it is starting to warm up, and we're expecting that by the end of this week, we're going to see temperatures hitting 100 degrees in parts of Owens Valley. So the runoff is going to be in full force. By the June 4th weekend, we expect that we're going to have a lot of flowing water now. Staff's been doing a great job in preparing for the runoff. I'm not going to go through everything that they've been working on, but I will mention a couple. I've talked to you before about the spreading operations, spreading water along the Owens Valley. It helps manage the water, but also recharges the local groundwater basins there. Also, we've been working on armoring Owens Lake, which is our dust control program. The concern there is that the brine pool, which is the middle portion there, has grown significantly. There's over 30,000 acre-feet of water there. We expect it to get to maybe over around 140,000 acre-feet of water. When that happens, there's a good chance that it could impact some of our dust control areas. Consequently, we've been armoring those facilities as much as we can to minimize any kind of damage that we may have in there. We've also added some temporary staff to help out with the efforts that are going to be working there for the next several months for us. We're also getting a lot of support from the other systems. Power system and joint system have been doing a great job in helping us manage the runoff. We also have implemented some other things to help out. For example, made some changes at our Long Valley Dam, where we're able to make changes to the spillway to add additional storage capacity to hold even more water behind that particular dam. So all these are being done in preparation for the runoff we expect to see now. Related to this, I will tell you that last Friday, Adam Perez, our aqueduct manager, actually spoke to the Energy and Environment Committee of the Council, provided them with an update on where we are. They were interested in our activities, so he provided an update on where we are in that situation with the runoff. We've been working a lot also with the communities, both in Inyo and Mono County, on the messaging and water safety. As you probably seen in the news, there's been a lot of issues with water emergencies, not necessarily in Owens Valley, but in other places like Yosemite. So we're reminding everybody that they need to be very water safe conscious right now. And then lastly, just want to let you know that also the City Council on June 21st concurred with Mayor Bass, and basically we're going from the phase 3 of a water conservation ordinance, which was limiting outdoor watering to 2 days a week. We're going back to phase 2, which is our norm, which allows outdoor watering to 3 days a week. So what will happen now is working with Joe Romano and his team. We're going to work on the outreach plan, but there will be an actual proclamation by the mayor that will basically reinstitute phase 2 of the water conservation ordinance by July 1st of this year. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
And that's the conclusion of my report. Thanks.
Are there any questions or comments on the general manager's report? Anything for Anselmo? Okay, terrific. I'm not aware of any future motions at this juncture. I do want to, though, indicate that at some point, either our meeting on the 11th or our meeting in August, after I consult with Dr. Pickle, I'll have a much better idea of which date. I'd like to bring forward to the board a focused discussion on our feed-in tariff program. As you all might recall, there was a rather engaging conversation that we began the last time they presented, and I'd like to see the department do something more formal and also to give the ratepayer advocate an opportunity to make a more robust presentation around that program as we consider additional potential work in that area. So that will be upcoming over the summer. Moving on to comments from ratepayer advocate. Anything that you want to address at this time?
Yes. I may have comments on the management reports after they're presented. And I do have comments on item 6, which is a comprehensive proposal for removing existing facilities at the Valley Generating System and replacing some of the buildings with newer but temporary facilities that are badly needed. We think given the overall cost of this at $150 million, we think there should be report backs to the board on major milestones, including a breakout of the costs of the different kinds of solar installations and the costs of the EV charger installations. Just as we get experience in installing those at our facilities, it's useful to pull these numbers out of the whole process, and that over time will inform any further discussions on feed-in tariffs and things like solar carports versus rooftop.
Okay, perfect.
And finally, this contract has a lot of breadth to it. There is a notice of compliance labor agreement as part of this that we believe is reasonable and with a reasonable cost benefit given the scale of the project.
Thank you. We will, we don't need to call that item special in order to get a report back, but it might be useful to get a report just to have it called and to get a report in general. So we'll call that special as well. Any other
I have the filed item on the wildfire. I wanted to stop on that one.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any discussions or any community impact reports or statements from neighborhood councils?
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on any of the items on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Then in terms of our regular agenda, we're going to call items 3, L3, L6, and L7 special, which means at this juncture, I'd like to know if we can get a motion to approve L1, 2, 4, and 5.
Motion to approve L1, 4, and 5?
1, 2, 4, and
1,
5.
2, 4, and 5.
8 is 8 special.
Commissioner?
8.
Oh, what about is there an 8? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, L8 as well.
And 8. 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8.
Terrific. I'll second. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner KATZ?
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER?
Aye.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Aye.
4 ayes, motion adopted.
Terrific. Then if we could now move to management reports. And we'll begin with M1, presentation regarding our newest employee resource group.
Okay, and Greg Reed will introduce this.
Thank you, General Manager. Good morning, Board, President, and Commissioners. I'm Greg Reed, Senior Assistant General Manager of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I'm very pleased to introduce our newest employee resource group, PRIDE, to celebrate the establishment of this important ERG with our gay, lesbian, transgender, and queer employees. LADWP is committed to fostering a workplace of inclusivity and understanding where every employee feels respected, valued, and empowered to be their authentic selves. By establishing this ERG PRIDE, we are demonstrating our commitment to providing equal employment opportunities and promoting a diverse and inclusive workforce. It's important that we understand the unique challenges experienced by our LGBTQ colleagues and the importance of creating a space that is safe and supportive within this organization. By establishing PRIDE as an ERG, my office will provide resources, support, and advocacy for our gay, lesbian, transgender, and queer employees to ensure that their needs are met and successes are celebrated. As I conclude my remarks, I encourage active participation within PRIDE to show that our workplace culture truly is welcoming, affirming, and truly inclusive. So with that, I want to hand it over to our co-chairs of PRIDE, Mr. Jason McCLAIN-HILL and Christopher Rapp. Please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Madam President, Commissioners, GM, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous right now. Appreciate everything. First, I want to say before I go into this, I do want to say that I really appreciate the comments you've made about the video production that my team have put together. We have a great team, and I really love their work. And you already got me crying. So,
you got this, Jason.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about LADWP Pride, the department's first newly chartered employee resource group for LGBTQIA plus employees and allies. Once again, I'm Jason McCLAIN-HILL. I'm an audiovisual technician with the department, and I've been here for over 7 years. I started my career with the city at LAPD in 1999, and I'm the founder of this ERG and its co-chair.
I'm Chris Repp. I'm a Civil Engineering Associate 3. I work for the city for 18 years, the department for 14 years, and I'm currently on the Operation Next team in the Water Resources Development Group.
So our ERG is currently established in this way. We have David Jacote as our executive sponsor. Obviously, Chris and I are the co-chairs of the group. Our communications group is headed up by Marshall Stiers and backed up by Paula Adler. And our membership engagement team is headed up by Leslie Cox-Toney and supported by Nathan Gallegos. The rest of our members of our team round out the ERG launch group, which include Thomas Godino, Eric Liu, Ronald Maurer, and Mayshell Yee. A couple of the members are here. I'd love to just say hi to them. So the Oxford Dictionary defines pride as a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements. They also define it as confidence and self-respect expressed by members of a group that are typically one that has been socially marginalized. Well, here at LADWP, Pride is our new employee resources group, which brings together employees from all over the department with the following mission: to foster community and networking within LADWP's diverse LGBTQIA plus employees and allies. Our group seeks to support equity for fair treatment for all employees and will focus on promoting inclusion and acceptance around LGBTQIA plus issues here at the department and citywide. I'm getting there. So how did the ERG come about? Well, last year in 2022, Christopher Street West, who normally puts on the West Hollywood Pride Parade, had decided to move its parade back to Hollywood, which put it right in the center of LADWP territory, customers, and our employees. So I approached communications manager Michelle Figueroa, and I had suggested that the department look at maybe getting a truck in the parade. From that conversation, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion came on board and coordinated an amazing event. Our in-house graphics team designed an amazing T-shirt, banner, and graphics for the truck, all focused on the theme of Power of Love, which came from the mind of Kathleen Chavez-Morez in DEIO. With assistance from Kathleen, Catherine Smith-Bell, Sunny Cho, and the rest of the motivated and talented folks at DEIO, we sent out a bulletin, and we received an overwhelming response. These are the photos from last year's parade. As you can see by these photos, everybody had a great time. Our department looked amazing, and the turnout was phenomenal. We had over 75 people in that group photo. And if you notice in the top center photo, one of our steam plant employees is signing a banner on the side of a truck. This is that banner. Sorry. After the amazing turnout of this event and meeting all these great people, the idea of creating an ERG was cemented. We had to do it. One future member of our group who was at the parade and signed the banner, on their Instagram account later that day posted, "They can't express how loved and accepted they felt more than ever before." And then they hit it with the hashtag, #WeAreLADWP. So again, I apologize for getting emotional. So a group of us volunteered to be on the steering committee and to create this ERG. And here's our first steering committee meeting held on WebEx on August 15th of 2022. Pictured from top left is me, Leslie, Chris, Marshall, and Paula. So a question that always comes up, and we always hear it, is why? Why create an employee resources group for lesbian, gay, transgender, queer, intersexual, and asexual plus employees and their allies? Well, to explain the reasoning for a group like this, I'm going to need to take you on a brief journey. Hopefully we're all familiar with the current Pride flag. It's officially called the Progress flag, which was developed in 2018. Well, sadly, this was not the first symbol of the gay community. The first symbol of the gay community comes from a much darker place. During World War II, just as the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a yellow Star of David, they also forced people that were labeled as gay to wear inverted pink triangles. People who were branded with these triangles were treated as the lowest of the low in camp hierarchy. In the mid to late 70s, a gay activist group, ACT UP, decided to embrace the pink triangle and use it as a symbol and as a reminder of the past. And as Winston Churchill once said, those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. In recent years, the amount of hatred, anger, and violence against our community has been on the rise, doubling the reports from 2021 to 2022. And 2023 is already on par to double those incidents. There's a sad fact. Basic freedoms are missing in 29 states for LGBTQIA+ Americans. Years after marriage equality became a reality nationwide, over half of the states could still deny LGBTQIA+ Americans basic freedoms like housing, healthcare, and education. And in recent actions from Florida, imprisonment and potentially death. According to the ACLU, there are currently 491 laws against the LGBTQIA community. I apologize, this slide is already out of date because there's more that have been introduced this year alone. The Human Rights Campaign recently announced a state of emergency for all LGBTQ+ Americans. They created a handbook to keep Americans safe, which I've shared with everyone, and you can find it on their website, hrc.org. I definitely think you should read it. Sorry. But I get it. Why here? Why now? Why create an employee resource group here at LADWP based on a person or group's sexual orientation or identity? I can sit here today and tell you facts from all over the world, but I think it'll help to give everyone listening and watching a more personal side to the story, which I'm really scared I'm not going to get through. But so I had a strong understanding who I was when I was 11 years old. We'll pause for cute.
You were cute.
Growing up in a conservative small town in New York State, I had to keep that part of me hidden for many years. I then graduated high school and got out of my small town. So I joined the Navy. At this point in my life, I was still very much in the closet. I went on to have an amazing career going through Air Crewman Candidate School, working on the flight decks of 2 aircraft carriers, and learning about aviation electronics. I served honorably for 3 years, but one day I was reported to my supervisors as being spotted in the gay part of town. I was interviewed, and I was forced to officially admit my homosexuality. And due to the don't ask, don't tell rule, I was honorably discharged from the United States Navy, a career I had hoped to retire from. To this day, I have a DD-214 with that label on it. I'm not going to read it out loud because I probably won't get through it. So a few months after getting out of the Navy, I made the decision to come to Los Angeles. I got a part-time job working at one of the studios at nighttime security job, which led me to meeting a lot of industry people and TV show editors who took me under their wing and showed me the ropes. And in 1994, I met my husband, Jerry. Here's a photo of us on our first date. I eventually went on to work at Walt Disney Home Video as an editor for 5 years. And in 1999, I was hired as an AV technician at LAPD. One afternoon, at work, the news had come up with a story about a gay protest that was going on in West Hollywood. As the story continued, my principal photographer came over, and after watching the news for about a second, said to us, "In my religion, gay people would not be allowed to exist." Now understand, at no time had I revealed or exposed my sexuality to anyone I worked with. But at that moment, for me, everything changed. From that point forward, my husband and me became my roommate and me in all conversations about weekend planning, about discussions of my home life, my personal time. I continued in that position for 6 years, never revealing the truth of myself to my coworkers and my boss specifically. This was not me. In 2005, I took a transfer to the LA Zoo, and from day one, I swore to never hide who I am, who I love, or what's important to me. I've had many different responses from people since then. Some have become close friends, and others I've kept at a distance. But I will never step back or diminish myself because of someone else's ignorance, religious beliefs, or upbringing. This is me. This is who I am. I am proud of who I am. And if you're not willing to stand with me, then step aside. And I want to add that this is a sentiment that is probably shared by many in my ERG. Sorry, our ERG. That's not mine. All right, so that's enough about me and my experiences. I'd love to have you here from my co-chair and ally, Chris Repp.
Thanks, Jason. So good morning again. You can go to the next slide. All right, so fortunately we got all the kids smiling in this picture. So that was a win. That doesn't happen very often. So I think most of us all understand the concept of what it means to be an ally. Okay, so to be clear, an individual can be straight to partake in, support, champion, and even lead this movement. And seriously, I cleared it with Jason and the team when we first started, so it's cool. So let me tell you why I sought to be a part of this committee. Well, I think we can all agree that life's simply too short not to do the things we are passionate about, right? So as a whole, I see it as incredibly important. At its core, I joined so that I could support and learn. But why? Well, we all know friends of friends, family, and even relatives have been affected. I've heard too many stories of children growing up in families led to believe that who they are was wrong. Many of these children were tremendously affected well into adulthood or worse, and that just really gets me. On the flip side, we also know folks that grew up in families that were incredibly supportive and have a sense of how important and beneficial that can be. That's what the community needs. So how can I influence the world for the better? How can I converse with those who may not understand, or those who tolerate, avoid, have contempt for, or flat out hate the queer community? So many of us have close family, friends, relatives, and even coworkers that may feel that way. So that's my charge. How do I navigate the extremely difficult task of influencing those who feel that way? In my experience, it's a thankless task. It requires patience, restraint, compassion, tact, and relentless understanding. I try to be kind and listen whenever I can, and I wish I had a bunch of great answers. But I postulated that the best way to figure that out was to immerse myself in the queer community in an influential position of leadership, for starters. So here I am. So what does it mean to be an ally? A steadfast supporter, of course, but I'll know even more in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, just to make everybody aware, allies are fully welcome in our ERG, and I appreciate you being here today as well. So let's talk about why it's important for the DWP with the help of some really amazing data from the Catalyst Group. An astounding 34.2% of LGBTQIA employees will leave their jobs if that they feel their work environment does not accept or support them. And sadly, 33.9% will spend much of their time looking for other work. And over 31% of all LGBTQIA plus Americans have experienced discrimination that affects their jobs, their productivity, and their promotional opportunities. But it's not all bad news, because we're here. In a study put out by the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, they found that if a brand publicly supports and demonstrates a commitment to expanding and protecting LGBTQIA rights, Americans are 2 times more likely to buy or use that brand, and are 4.5 times more likely to work for a company who does. And people ages 18 to 34 are 5.5 times more likely to want to work for a company that supports the gay community. As well, the group found overwhelmingly great news in that over 70% of non-LGBTQ people agree that companies should support the LGBTQ community. So I think we've answered the why. We're a newly chartered group, only officially being signed into existence on June 2nd, 2023, by the new Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Greg Reed. This past year alone, we've held a meet and greet on the JFB patios, and we received a great response, signing up more than 20 new members to the group, now over 80 members strong. But I do want to add a point. The great news is you don't have to join our group to be a member. You don't have to join our group to attend our events, to speak with our advisors, or to get our assistance or help in any matter. We've also been involved recently in the Out in LA government, attending a couple of the events that they've had. And we had a second presence at the 2023 LA Pride Parade. You were shown a video of that at last meeting. I want to thank my coworker, Osha Manukian, for putting that together in record time. But here are some photos we had. There were over 100 employees, families, and friends and allies at the parade this year. You can all see yourselves in the pictures there. We recently created an Instagram account at LADWP_Pride so people can follow along and engage with our team. And we're currently working to get a company email address for recruitment and information sharing. We have a lot of ideas for the future on how we're going to grow our presence, raise awareness, and hopefully find a common ground that all LADWP employees, no matter their sexual identity, ethnic background, religious beliefs, or job classifications, can stand proudly by and say, we are LADWP. And that's it.
Whoa.
Are there any questions or?
Questions, comments?
I do have some questions. It's okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason, for sharing your story, and Chris and Greg for your support and involvement. Any of these ERG groups usually have a senior leader as a champion or someone who's involved. And you are both senior, but not quite at the top of the executive leadership. And I was wondering if you had sought that out or if there's some way we could assist in that, because I think
David Jacote is our senior advisor.
Okay, but he's not here.
He was going to be here, but he's not feeling well, so I apologize for not being here. But he's our senior advisor and our, there's a title for it. Executive sponsor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Super. I'm glad to hear that.
Scrambled eggs right now.
You'll have to get on the list.
Yeah. But we welcome anybody who wants to come aboard.
Okay, super.
I really appreciated the presentation. I have two members of our family, children of my brother and sister. I was just saying to President how the swag is going to be very helpful because I'm going to El Salvador to visit with one of them. I didn't have time to go shopping, so it's going to be special, and she's doing really well. My other relative was in the Israeli army for quite some time, and it's very hard for me. I think some of us need conversations with some of you that are not formal, just, he eventually became a lady. She's beautiful, and it's been really just watching all the surgeries and all of that happen was very, scary.
Yeah.
But she's doing really well. I just have even a hard time calling her a he. I mean, worked out that his name was Itamar, and now she's Anita, so it works out really well. So anyway, I just want to say I really appreciate it, and I would only wish upon many of these people going through this that they would have this kind of support and the leadership that you're all showing. And it would be nice to set up sort of a lunch or something to talk a little bit more around this issue and how some of us who have friends and relatives, who are going through this, and perhaps don't have this kind of support, how we could guide them.
Definitely, we'll take that under advisement. We could have brown bag lunch meetings. We can.
Yeah, that would be.
You can pick my brain all you want.
Okay. Let me know when the next brown bag meeting is.
Commissioner KATZ.
Yeah, I also just wanted to thank you for the presentation, but also to say
don't apologize for being emotional in these cases. I think, it shows strength and vulnerability for you to share your personal story. I'm very sorry for all of the discrimination that you've faced, including the loss of your position in the Navy, and really appreciate you bringing your whole heart to this presentation today. It's clear that there's so much passion and dedication in creating this resource for our employees. For me personally, not only as a member of the community, but also as someone who's lost family in the Holocaust and who had family at a hate-related shooting at the Jewish Community Center in the 90s, I know on a very deep and personal level what damage hate can do in our communities, and it's been horrific seeing the type of protests, violence, et cetera, that are taking place right now in our nation. And so I think in that climate, this type of work becomes even more important in creating a safe and inclusive space for our community. And I just really want to thank you very much for the work that you're doing. And I know that it means so much to so many of our employees and their families. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I had one additional question I'd wanted to ask, just in terms of funding for the department. And are you getting any funding, and how does that work?
Would that be the ERG charter does establish how we get our funding, and we don't do membership fees. We chose to not go with membership fees because the concern there is that it would open up for documentation of all our members and for access to those lists of who our members are for anybody who may not feel fully comfortable reaching out and getting assistance from us. We wanted to make sure everybody could understand, and as I'm saying right now, please understand that if you want to remain anonymous and you want to get our assistance, we will provide that to you. And the main reason why we don't go with a membership fee is for that purpose, to provide that 100, as best as we can, anonymity.
So and I'll just add that it's unfortunate that in 2023, we have to have comments or conversations like that.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is providing full support for the Pride ERG, as well as all of our ERGs, to promote events, to provide resources, and to enable this ERG to be successful and to support all of our employees in so many different ways. We've done some very outstanding events so far, and many of those have been on display in the video segments that we've seen, and we do not expect Pride to be any different.
Marty, you had something to say?
No, I just want to thank Jason and Chris for being here, and Jason we talked about this beforehand, and he talked about sharing his story, and I thought it was very powerful, and thank you for sharing that part of your life with us. Was obviously extremely difficult, but really, and to Commissioner Lehrer's comments, same thing. I've got a gay nephew, and I don't think there's any of us who doesn't see how this community fits in our own personal lives, and it's hard to, when you have friends or family that are gay or any part of the community, they're just people to you. But when you hear stories of someone who's had overt discrimination, overt issues, it seems otherworldly, and it shouldn't be. And everything we're doing here is about trying to make sure that everybody feels comfortable at work, everybody feels accepted, that there's not limitations on anyone's advancement, that people should advance and enjoy their career based on their own abilities without any reservation. And I think we're getting there. I think we're far from perfect, but we're getting there. And I want to thank Chris for being here. Picture him and his family, and it's testimony that we should all be in this together for each other, because this department really does reflect the community that we serve, and the better job that we can do in how we treat each other, I think, reflects also in how we treat the community and become an example for the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate it.
So I want to say thank you for that, Marty, and Jason. Thank you, Chris. This was a very powerful presentation, and it's always important and useful when we can make it about someone that we know, someone that we can relate to very directly. So I appreciate that. You asked a number of questions in your presentation. You know, why? What are we doing? What for? Why here at work? And I hear those questions sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, as the department is really still very early in its journey around issues related to DEI. You know, this is the second year that we've participated in Pride. It's maybe the fourth year since we established NSBE and SWE, and you know, these are all very new conversations here, and I know that DEI will be working to advance more of them in a deeper and more meaningful way. The why here, that's reflected from my perspective by your experience at LAPD and in the Navy. You know, it is critical that we be, well, what's true is we bring our full selves to work. We show up with all of our notions and biases and everything that we are in the world we bring here, which makes this a really important environment to begin to learn and to share and to see each other and to understand the necessity to make room for everyone and to question and to challenge our own assumptions. So I am incredibly proud of the work that this department is doing. I'm extremely excited by the establishment of Pride, and it's really unique to have a group whose leadership includes not only a member of the community, but an ally. That's a really impressive statement. And I couldn't be just more excited to see both this at the department, to see the impact that that the courageous assertion of your very being has on those around you and others at this department, and really to be further enriched by all there is to learn from all of the people with the range of experience and backgrounds that inhabit this place. And to Marty's, you know, abiding belief, we started a very good place. We started a place where, by and large, DWP employees are very loyal to one another and very supportive of their colleagues. That's at least the place that they want to be. It's the thing they aspire to. And that creates an opening for important, crucial conversations that expand all of our perceptions, all of our abilities to show up in the world, both at work and at home, and in the broader community as we move through Los Angeles and beyond. So this has really been terrific, and it is, based on this presentation, it gives me great insight into why the videos that we get back from your group are so strong. You are a powerful storyteller.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, everyone.
With that, we'll move to our second presentation of the day.
So we have our presentation on our shut-off policy. Greg, you might as well stay at the, yeah, you and Estella are going to present this here.
And do we have something from communications on shut-off policy as well? Yes. Okay. Great.
Give me a few moments to gather myself. It was a real powerful presentation and quite an impactful moment.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes. Okay. All right. Well,
you're now truly back. You're at the presenter's table.
Okay, and thank you, Board President, thank you, General Manager and Commissioners, for this opportunity to be before you again. And of course, Greg Reed, Senior AGM for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
And I am Estella Tiemann. I am the Director of Customer Service Operations.
And I want to also take a moment to just thank our community partners for being with us today and for the advocacy that they provide for our frontline communities so as to ensure that there is equitable access to water and power services, affordability, and protections that we are seeking to provide through today's topic. Today's presentation is a result of the resolution that the board had given in November of 2022 to protect all of our customers during extreme weather conditions. So with that, our guiding principle is to ensure that all Angelenos have equitable access to water and power, and that our policies and our practices no longer add to the disparities that are prevalent among our most vulnerable communities. So we have made a substantial commitment to provide protection for Angelenos, and this board has taken unprecedented action to ensure that. The first column you see here is the policy to discontinue collections-related shutoffs for non-payment as it relates to our Easy Save and Lifeline customers, so that we're supporting our LA families, children, and older adults who may have lower income, but to ensure that they are secure and continue to contribute to our incredibly diverse city. We are also moving rapidly to increase access and enrollment into our free assistance programs to help customers stay on top of their bills, which will in turn help them avoid shutoffs. And that includes enrolling them into our level pay program. And that level pay program can include the past due balances to help that affordability piece while they're also catching up on those late payments. And those include no penalty fees, no interest payments. And we also have bill assistance programs such as our low-income home energy assistance program, LEHRER, and low-income household water assistance program, LEHWAP. And so finally, today's topic is going to focus on extending those same protections to all of our customers during extreme weather events, because this is an important first step, one of many, to ensure that we're protecting our customers and providing safety and resiliency for all the communities that we serve. So with that said, our first step in supporting LA's public health and resiliency during extreme weather events consists of two primary activities. The first is our proposal to utilize the National Weather Service alerts to trigger our suspension of collections-related water and power shutoffs. And Estella will talk with you more about the operationalizing of that policy recommendation. But we also recognize a second track is important too, and that is to address the broader question about how we as a city can continue to support Angelenos in managing increasingly volatile weather conditions and climate. So with that, once Estella is complete with her remarks, I will present some additional information about ways LADWP can strengthen and support our broader efforts to mitigate and manage extreme weather events into the future. So with that, I'll hand it over to Estella.
Thank you, Greg. So, as Greg mentioned, I will be covering our proposal to adopt the National Weather Service alerts to trigger the suspension of collections-related shutoffs. So first, I'd like to talk about our current policy. So our policy prior to the COVID-19 moratorium was based on a 100-degree threshold by service district. For example, if we saw weather forecasts in the San Fernando Valley, they were like 104 degrees, we would suspend collections in that district. However, if the harbor was still seeing 88 degrees, we would continue collection activities in the harbor. On the cold side, we didn't have a temperature threshold given the mild temperatures that historically were in the LA area in the winters. On average, our current policy provided protections to about 34 days per year on the service districts, and it did cover all customer classes, residential, commercial, and industrial. Now, in our new proposal that we're bringing forth today, we intend to use the National Weather Service heat and cold alerts to trigger the suspension of collections-related shutoffs. Recognizing that extremes on both the hot and cold sides will be more and more prevalent. We will continue to practice monitoring the alerts by each service district And we will pause in those service districts where an alert has been issued by the National Weather Service. We will monitor 8 alerts, 3 heat and 5 cold thresholds that you can see on the slide. These range from excessive heat warnings all the way down to hard freeze warnings. These alerts are generally issued about 72 hours before a weather event. And the proposed policy based on, we looked at 2017 to 2022, will provide about 36 days on average per year. And again, it will continue to cover all customer classes. So the National Weather Service heat alerts are based.
I'm sorry, or just, excuse me, sorry. So it won't actually increase that many more days, it looks like.
I have more detail on a slide
Okay.
that's coming.
Okay.
That we can see what the ranges are.
Okay.
The National Weather Service heat alerts are based on the National Weather Service's heat risk score. The heat risk scores are a composite score which alerts the public of the level of heat risk in a particular area and the associated actions that people should take. The heat risk score takes into consideration whether temperatures pose higher risks for health complications supported by the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, as well as characteristics of air temperature, including the duration of the heat during the daytime and the nighttime, and how significantly above normal those temperatures are for that location for that time of the year. The National Weather Service heat alerts that we will be tracking are the heat advisory, excessive heat watch, and the excessive heat warning. And these are issued by the local National Weather Service office when there's a heat score of 2, which is moderate heat risk, and it's indicated on the slide by orange. So at the orange level or higher. The advisories, watches, and alerts are typically, like I said before, issued 72 hours prior to a heat event. And these alerts range in duration given that the National Weather Service revises the alerts if there are changes to the heat risk score. They can either extend it or shorten the alert. It's important to note that we do want to watch the excessive heat watch in addition to the excessive heat warning, because the heat watch basically gives us a sign that intense heat is coming, and therefore we can prepare for that. Using these alerts and thresholds helps us better coordinate with city and county agencies as well. The city's emergency management department coordinates cross-agency activities based on these thresholds, including the opening of cooling centers and other resources, outreach and communication, and any emergency response coordination. Now, on the cold side, the National Weather Service alerts are based on air temperature alone, with frost advisories triggered when temperatures drop to 35 degrees or below. So it's important to note that the cold alerts are not as sophisticated right now as the heat alerts and the heat risk score. But we do understand that the National Weather Service will be rolling out a cold weather statement in the coming year to better reflect local climates and population impacts. And when that happens, then we will incorporate that into our policy. So the slide that you see now are tweets from the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service alerts are widely broadcasted on all major outlets in LA. They're typically communicated by the press, by the city and county agencies as part of a coordinated emergency response to heat advisory, excessive heat watches, and excessive heat warnings. The slide on your left is an advisory that was issued during the Super Bowl time period in 2022. Now, during the winter, we usually have temperatures that are quite mild and comfortable, but because the temperatures were abnormally high for that time of the year, the National Weather Service issued a 5-day heat advisory. And the key features of the alerts, they consider time of year, where it is, and it shows how we have unpredictable weather from year to year, month to month in LA. And the second example is just a tweet from June of 2021. So our proposed National Weather Service thresholds increase the number of protected days across the city of Los Angeles. So we looked at the annual averages from 2017 to 2022 to estimate the number of protected work days for our 100-degree threshold, and then for our proposed National Weather Service heat and cold alerts. So Commissioner, I think this is the slide if you want to look at of the number of days per the different districts. We see that the proposed policy will increase the number of protected days to over 99% of our customers in the LA area. Now, it is important to note that the individual National Weather Service field offices issue the alerts, and that these field offices are given discretion over when to issue the heat and cold alerts based on how diverse the climates can be. So in the case of Owens Valley, in the Bishop and Lone Pine area in Eastern Sierra, that area is covered by the local Las Vegas National Weather Service office and not the Los Angeles office. The National Weather Service Las Vegas office uses a strong understanding of climatology to issue alerts relevant to their climates, which is different than the LA office. It is still important to note that 99% of our customers will stand to benefit from this proposed policy. And it's important to note that this is only the first step, that we intend to continue to evaluate these parameters to ensure that we're right-sizing the policy for local conditions.
Estelle, did you consider doing the most, instead of eliminating one threshold, did you consider potentially taking the most generous threshold? So that would still enable the Owens Valley community?
That was part of our discussion, but what we want to do right now is set parameters that we follow for all of our customers, and that's why right now we're proposing that we do follow the National Weather Service.
I'm not suggesting having a specialized one for Owens Valley. I'm suggesting that all the entire service area be under both. And
Well, except that if you look at where we were under the 100-degree temperature, for Harbor, for instance, it would have been 2 days, and now it goes up to 17. So for every other area except Owens Valley, there's a significant increase in what's covered. So if we were incorporating the 100-degree Fahrenheit threshold, that would simply maintain Owens Valley at the rate that it was before, as opposed to having one standard and then having it play out.
yeah, no, I recognize that. It just seems like the 100 would create a fail-safe to ensure that all areas that, unless we're deeming
Well, because
So you're suggesting using both, like NWS, but then also the 100 degrees so that Owens remains protected?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think that could potentially make sense, either that or allowing Owens to use a different methodology.
So the one thing we considered also is the standard temperature that area is accustomed to and incorporating that. So we were applying LA standards, which is milder than some of the temperatures in Owens with our current model. So that's why we still suggest, because different populations.
All I can say is that you want to be very careful, because one of the things that we've not done, I mean, Owens Valley is very hot and people have chosen to move there. We have in Los Angeles heat islands that we are not able to carve out and to provide a higher standard to address that just yet. So what the department is trying to do is to set a standard that can be applied across all of our service territories as we continue to refine through data and technology, more sensitive approaches to dealing with these issues in general. But I would be, I'd be careful about, or want to be thoughtful about, a standard that doesn't take into account specific, issues pre-existing with respect to temperature and region. I mean, Owens Valley is different from the city of LA. which is why a 100-degree temperature threshold got you a much more favorable outcome if you lived in Owens Valley than it got you if you lived in Wilmington.
Right.
Commissioners,
Yeah.
if I may, just one of the things I wanted to add is that this was a departure from the past in that our past policy applied really and was founded on employee safety. And this is really from the customer perspective in terms of when is it inappropriate to shut off for our customers. I do want to mention that it is customary in the Owens Valley for us not to deploy meter readers when it goes over 100 degrees. So that would still be the option and the available to the supervisors to comply with for employee safety. Certainly the threshold with National Weather Service being customer-based would be uniform across the board, but from an employee safety standpoint, we could still do that there. And in fact, we did have some outreach and some discussions very briefly, preliminarily with IVW regarding that just before this meeting in terms of 100 degrees, whether or not that's appropriate to be sending employees out. There's other factors such as wildfire that aren't specifically referenced that we would also utilize. We're not going to send our employees out if there's air quality impacts that would preclude us or would cause us to pull them back on a given day. Same with civil disturbance or other things like that.
I also think it might be worth looking into on the cold side. To me, those temperatures seem really low. I mean, it seems like if someone is relying on electric heat, that temperatures in the 40s are also not very sleepable or livable conditions. So I'd be interested to see if there are any other options on the cold side than, because this is about people being okay in their homes. And I think those weather alerts for cold weather are more about when it's dangerous to be outside with exposure. So there may or may not be appropriate on the cold side, it seems like, since it's only once it gets into the 30s. So I'm not an expert in this, but I'd like to see a bit more analysis on the cold side, I think.
Can I add something to that? So on the cold side, National Weather Service primarily was focused on agriculture, so crops. So in this coming year, hopefully before our winter hits, the National Weather Service will roll out that new program that incorporates the human effects.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing that once they develop it, because I think
we can certainly bring it back for winter to make appropriate tweaks, either if we don't think the National Weather Service has sufficiently addressed the issue that the commissioner is addressing, we can do that at that time.
That would be great.
And if not, and if they haven't issued any guidance at all, then I think it would be appropriate to look at this again from that perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear they're developing some new guidelines there, so I'm open to seeing what those end up being. And I have no idea what % of our customers are relying on electric heat, where the shutoffs would matter, if a lot of them have gas, but it'd be good to look into.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We primarily, the department took this up as a response to extreme heat, but it is broadened to extreme temperatures, so additional work would be helpful.
Yes. I have a question / comment because, it's something we have to prepare for. I know we've been working with a number of organizations around the issues that were brought up by some of the community members about shade and trees. So I just want to make sure that we somehow make sure that we're continuing to push on that agenda, and that we really somehow catalog what we're doing every year and how we're working with the school districts and Streets LA and others in order to make sure that, because it benefits everybody, right? It benefits the department. It's just going to give, there's other measures other than AC and air conditioning, So let's just make sure we keep on those sort of focused on some of those projects that are ongoing, those that I think we need to. I know there's changes at city plants. Anyway.
Commissioner, I actually will put another presentation around trees on the agenda. I did have a conversation with the folks in efficiency that are working on that aspect of
Great.
our work. And it is clearly a part of what the
Yes.
department can deploy as it seeks to
Yes.
assist the city
Yes,
in
thank
dealing
you.
with extreme temperatures.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Greg, who's going to expand on how we're going to strengthen our policy.
Absolutely. And our board president alluded to some facets of this next section of our presentation because this is a very important first step to help the department address increasingly volatile weather conditions. And so one thing that we are recognizing, and this map illustrates, is that we need to build and provide greater support for the National Weather Service to have data that can better characterize the experiences across our very diverse city. And so this map that you're seeing in front of you shows the National Weather Service monitoring locations within our jurisdiction, and also overlaid on this is the salmon-colored SB 535 designated disadvantaged community areas. And when you look at those salmon-colored areas, you'll notice that there are not as many monitoring points within that area. And so the opportunity for us to help the National Weather Service gain additional data is there. The National Weather Service does work with other agencies to collect volunteer data, and so we can strengthen the National Weather Service by providing our own data within the communities that lack the kind of coverage that needs to be provided. So as a part of providing greater visibility into these areas, we can potentially fill the data gaps, what we're calling data deserts, to ensure that the National Weather Service and other agencies have more data points to validate and improve their forecasting, the modeling, and ultimately the alerts that are issued. And so that'll help us have better visibility into the experience of microclimates, urban heat island effects across our city. And that can also inform the kind of responses that we take in terms of this policy action.
So we'll be using our existing infrastructure to achieve that outcome, is that right?
That's correct, right. So we have an opportunity to site weather stations across our water system and power system infrastructure and assets. There are some business and regulatory concerns that we have to make sure we're adhering to, but we're looking at a range of solutions, including partnering with other public agencies to establish a more points and a tighter grid that can be fed into the National Weather Service system. So with that, this slide is meant to share with you that other agencies are actually doing this. You can see from the graph that PG&E has quite a bit of contribution towards the National Weather Service network, also Southern California Edison. So there's a big opportunity for us to participate as well and to establish more monitoring and contribute towards the network. So with that, we are immediately embarking on an effort to determine where we are able to share meteorological data that we currently capture across our water and power systems, and determining whether we can share this data from our existing sites and how we might work with National Weather Service and other partners to identify and install new observation sites across our city, and then how we can make that data publicly available for the National Weather Service and other agencies. So with that, it's important to remember that putting these equipment into publicly available observation sites is not going to be the only solution to solving our climate problems, especially for disadvantaged communities. But this is a very important first step. It's a tangible step that can be done relatively quickly, and it'll support everything that we've been talking about so far. This first step, it's also important to understand the intersection of heat, extreme weather, and equitable access. So with that, we will continue to partner with our other city agencies, academic institution, and our community-based organizations to ensure that we're leading with equity and supporting public health, thermal comfort goals, among others. Uh-oh, am I running out of time?
You're being assigned a mission.
Okay, so with that, our immediate next steps are to operationalize this policy at the board's pleasure and to evaluate the scope of an expanded network, where we might locate those sites, and developing a project to implement the sharing of that data with the National Weather Service. So scoping that project, we should be able to accomplish within the next 12 months. In the meantime, we'll also explore potential partnerships with other public agencies, academia, and community-based organizations, and get that done within the next 6 months. So with that, I'll hand it over to Joe Romalo to kind of help us close out with some additional information about the broader variety of programs that we have implemented to help further protect our customers.
Oh, gosh.
I wanted to take the opportunity for some free advertising since this is on television. First and foremost, if Reggie, if you could bring up the deck that I prepared for this. Just wanted to explain the communication strategy for this particular policy and then how it folds into our overall Cool LA initiative. Specific to this policy, as is typical of any major initiative, we will share this information with our customers. Today we'll be putting out a press release. Later on today, the mayor was fortunate enough to, we were fortunate enough to get a quote from her, should the board approve it. And also follow up with earned media. I know there's a number of media who are following this. It was put on the newswire this morning. This is a significant step in protecting our customers, and we want to take advantage of that earned media opportunity. We'll also be sharing this news on our social media channels, which include Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, including with paid promoted posts, with neighborhood councils, as well as our community-based organizations. We also have our customer newsletters, which include the billing newsletter, our community news, and others, including some that are under development, where we'll share the policy as well in order to spread it as wide as possible. We'll work with Matt Hale in Intergovernmental Affairs to share it with council offices because their newsletters, frankly, get read more frequently than ours. And this is a significant benefit for their customers that I think they'll be very pleased with. Importantly, and a part of that really is that this will be featured as a part of our Cool LA website, which is ladwp.com/cool-LA, as one of the benefits of this initiative and this marketing program for our customers. When we have heat waves, storm-related activities, or cold, we typically tick off a number of key issues for our customers related to that. It usually involves ways to save energy. In this case, we're going to be incorporating elements of Cool LA, including this policy, so that it's shared in real time when there are events that a heat wave is upon us, or we're urging conservation, or might anticipate that there could be some strain on the grid. This is going to fold into our overall Cool LA campaign, which has been ongoing from May, and it will run through the summer. Just as by way of recollection, and I want to make sure to connect it to this, this will become one element of Cool LA, so this shutoff policy. If you go to the website, you'll see that we link to a number of benefits and programs, including our wonderful air conditioning rebate program, which provides portable and window air conditioners at virtually no cost for many of the models that are there. Links and information related to things like level pay, monthly billing, our efficient product marketplace for other devices, and our thermostat program, which is the programmable thermostat that customers can sign up for, get at free to low cost, and that we can help manage their electricity and they can save on their bill during heat waves. You'll see some of the creative here that was done by our fantastic graphics team as a part of the summer campaign and a refresh from last year. You may recall last summer we had launched Cool LA toward the end of the summer. We spent time between last fall and winter developing a campaign that's been ongoing. From May to June, we spent approximately $250,000 in advertising, specifically around seasonal high bills and conservation tips, ways to manage your bill as you look toward the summer. The level pay program, which will be getting another bump very soon because level pay will be available to enroll in online coming very soon toward the end of summer. The air conditioner rebates, the consumer rebate program, These have been through ads that have been shared through various channels, paid advertising. Starting in July and September, we're going to focus on the air conditioners especially because it's timely. We have portable AC units available for raffles that can help promote the program at community events. We want to work with council offices as well to make those available for their community events. And a number of other elements here that will be part of the paid campaign. Just by way of reference to last summer, with a push last year, we did over 2,000 air conditioners through the Efficient Product Marketplace, almost $500,000 in savings for our customers. And you can see that really started very late in the season in September. And that small note there, which I'm having trouble reading from here, indicates that it was approximately 5 years worth that we accomplished in a matter of a few months in terms of air conditioner rebates. So I know that advertising is important and impressions are important, but I know what matters, especially to this board, are conversions and actual customers who participate. We want to share more data with you about the other elements of Cool LA, but this is one I especially wanted to highlight because I thought it was noteworthy for such an important benefit for our customers to help cope with the heat. Just by way of target audience here, I'll go through this briefly. I know there was concern from the community about the different languages. Again, this will be incorporated in the Cool LA program. There will be specific ads around this policy as a part of Cool LA. So I don't want you to think it's going to get lost as just one of the elements. And it will be in multiple languages for our community newspapers that you'll see there at the bottom of the slide. These are the different campaign tactics, channels specifically, social media, digital advertising. I know Mr. Rahimian was stating earlier he saw it on the Daily News website this morning. Those are ads that are ongoing to support the campaign. Print advertising, and just to, we also have a radio element here and streaming audio. This is all a part of the a combined $500,000 campaign that will run from May through September, and that's ongoing now. Outdoor advertising, you see the billboards here in front of me, as well as on the back of bus tails. Our advertising team and marketing team has been fantastic in pulling this together with our creative team. And then these are just some of the larger scale ads that will be placed in multiple languages. Half-page color ads in 17 local publications, including ethnic publications. Social media, and some of the digital banner ads that you'll see as you surf around the web on various news sites and other platforms. City Watch LA, our own website, community newspaper. And then we're partnering with Energy, who runs the Efficient Product Marketplace, to do direct email to customers. I also know that for water conservation, we did that mailer that went home to residential customers. We're doing one around Cool LA this summer as well. So you should be receiving that to highlight all the different benefits. And that's it. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I really appreciate the presentation, and as usual, incredibly thorough, and I think the fact that you're going from print to radio, I think some of the people, some of the speakers today spoke about the culturally sort of diverse presentation strategies. I never have had an issue with one of your graphics, but I think the lady on the rocking chair is really culturally inappropriate on many levels. She does not need, I'm just saying, either there should be a second one with that. It just seems, just the way she's sitting there. I mean, you want to put it up so you can see.
I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Okay, take a look. It just needs a little work. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
No, really incredible.
Yeah, I think we heard from public comment today how important this program is, so I just want to say thanks for addressing.
Yes. Yeah.
I've got a couple of comments. So first, I too want to thank all of the community-based organizations who have spent so much time and brought so much passion and expertise to this discussion. It is obviously critical that that every public agency with capacity step up and try to do what we can to address the critical issues brought about by climate change. And extreme temperatures is very immediate, especially extreme heat as we are facing down yet another potentially very, very hot summer. To the department staff, I know that this has just been a long and intense slog through this work and a stretch, but it also represents the real significant growth and shift that this department has taken as as what's needed by the community that we serve. As their needs change and grow and evolve, our response has changed, grown, and evolved to the point that we, are meeting those needs in a really substantive and unique and in some ways industry-leading way. This does represent a very significant next step. First and foremost, there is no citizen in the city of Los Angeles who will be losing access to water or power enrolled in one of our Easy Save or Lifeline programs. That just will not happen. So that was a very significant step with respect to ensuring access, and something that I know that this board is very proud to have worked with the department in championing and worked with the community in securing for our customers. This extends that policy. I just have a few questions. The policy talk speaks to no shutoffs for failure to pay. What is the difference between that and no involuntary shutoff? Are there reasons that we might be shutting off or interrupting service during an extreme temperature or weather event unrelated to failure to pay? Because from my perspective, my interest is in preventing involuntary shutoffs during those periods, so not just failure to pay.
The only other situation where failure to pay would be where there's theft involved in the situation, but otherwise, there's not. That's the only one. We always put a little asterisk on it if there is theft or fraud that's been discovered at a location. Then
Also safety.
for safety reasons.
Yeah, but safety, I would think, would be I don't. So we would be concerned that we would have customers. Yeah, I don't know that safety.
The safety one is usually tied to fraud and theft if someone has wired something around the meter. So that's the only condition.
Okay, I may want to think about that later, but I'll let it go now.
It's an unusual situation.
I was going to say it probably
does occur from time to
isn't
time.
something that I should spend a lot of energy on at this particular moment. So, okay, so thank you for that. I also do want to acknowledge the importance of the additional work with respect to the data gaps that exist. I mean, it's always illuminating to see an overlay, which, for the communities that tend to be left out of significant service, to see that it typically follows the same communities that have suffered from redlining, et cetera. So having the department use its infrastructure to help address those gaps really does provide a unique and beneficial service. It also gives us the opportunity to better understand what's happening in certain communities. We know, for instance, and Commissioner LEHRER, you mentioned, I think, schools We know that among the hottest places in the city of Los Angeles during extreme heat is often a school blacktop somewhere in South LA. What's interesting is we don't know when and how and whether the National Weather Service is appropriately triggering alerts because they don't have the same level of monitoring in those neighborhoods. So by feeding data into that system, we will immediately have the potential of improving and perhaps prompting a more appropriate level of declaration than currently exists. So I appreciate that. I also want to make sure that Commissioner Neiman Brady's concerns relative to Owens Valley would be adequately addressed. Commissioner, this is a question for you. Assuming that the department, for safety of its employees, wouldn't be deploying meter or technicians under those once you hit 100-degree temperature. So you essentially keep the same outcome without changing or creating a different standard. So thank you for that, Joe. That was very important. I appreciate that. I am mindful of the additional points raised about air quality and know that that is not specifically, especially when it, the example of wildfires and what that does to the air, and often the advice that's given about closing your windows and staying in home. That is I think an issue that really does bear additional investigation, exploration on our part. So I'll be interested in seeing more on that. And then I just want to say, these measures to better achieve, to better support our customers and our city as we transition or as we deal with climate change are really very interim. The Department of Water and Power can do what we can do, but obviously, we have long-term strategies being executed both by the department and the city at large and the state, which will more comprehensively address climate change. It is simply that our customers can't wait for the long term. And so it is incumbent upon us to address these issues and these matters in the short run. I am grateful that the mayor is taking note of our actions or proposed actions here today, because we will need all of the voices and all of the levers of government to get the word to the people who need it. The one final thing I will say is that the motion adopted in November also instructed the department to work with community-based organizations as part of our communication strategy to make sure that the information that's required gets to the end user. It is sometimes difficult to comprehend the real gap between many of our more formal channels and the residents in neighborhoods that are underserved in terms of their ability to get information. And so I continue to believe, and this board has directed, that we determine a path forward with respect to incorporating those organizations that are working with frontline communities that have built significant credibility and that are in those neighborhoods to assist us in our dissemination of information. So I'll be looking forward to a report back. I know that none of these things are developed overnight, that it takes a considerable amount of time, of effort, of planning, of thinking to execute in a way that is going to be sustainable, that's going to achieve the impact and the outcomes that we seek. And I appreciate the degree to which that level of thought and planning that's taken place to get us to this point. I'm confident that we have had impact, that we will have even greater impact as we move forward. And, I'm really impressed by the model of both the department and its collaboration with the community, and seeing that reinforced and leveled up over and over and over again. So thank you for that. And it is my real pleasure to take the prerogative of the chair and to make the motion to adopt the to take to move L3 at this time for adoption out of order, if that is okay with the rest of the board.
Yes, and I second your motion.
Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner KATZ?
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER?
Aye.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Aye.
4 ayes, motion adopted.
Thank you. And again, for those who came to testify, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have management report. You know what? It's 12:15. Should we take a 15-minute break? All right.
Good idea.
We are going to take a break. We'll be back at 12:30. We're in recess.
Please maintain silence for the next 20 seconds in the audience and at the dais. Please maintain silence for the next 20 seconds. Thank you.
I didn't drop it. I just in case it rains.
Madam President, we're ready to begin.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner KATZ?
Present.
Commissioner LEHRER?
Present.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Present.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Present.
4 board members, a quorum is present.
Terrific. We are now, we're still in management reports. We've got presentation number 3 regarding the overhead distribution repair jobs update.
Okay.
I'll turn over to Simon. Go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We'll be providing a very brief update on our progress on overhead distribution repair jobs, specifically on priority 2 jobs. It's been a while since we have made a larger overview of the overhead distribution repair jobs. So I would like to bring some background knowledge for all our audience members. The California Public Utilities Commission sets the standards for inspection, maintenance, and replacement that needs to be taken by all electric utilities within California with respect to distribution poles and the overhead electrical systems to ensure public and employee safety. As a result, DWP is responsible for inspecting, maintaining, and replacing the distribution system infrastructure, which includes about 300,000 overhead poles throughout the city. CPUC's General Order 165, which is stated here on this slide, sets the regulations on how this asset should be inspected. As you can see, there are 3 types of inspections that are required by LADWP and other utilities. The first one is a patrol or visual inspection that requires inspection of all our overhead facilities, 300,000 poles, at least once every year. The detailed overhead inspections include a very thorough inspection and diagnostics done on our poles over a period of 5 years to cover the entire 300,000 poles. And the third one is the intrusive inspection, which requires soil and pole samples, wood samples that need to be examined for any type of aging, and that's one of the important inspections that we conduct here at LADWP. Next slide. Another set of standards by the California Public Utilities Commission is General Order 95. It's a very broad general order that covers all requirements needed on the overhead electrical power lines. This can include construction requirements, vegetation management, clearances between conductors and the ground, and lastly, maintenance programs that should be established by utilities. Next slide, please. On this slide, you would see from a maintenance perspective what utilities are required to establish an auditable maintenance program that their facilities each one of them have a timeline, and priority levels are set for each type of maintenance activities that need to take place. And if you could click it one more time, we have talked about priority 1 and priority 2 repair jobs in the past, priority 1 being the most immediate, that have to be fixed within or repaired within 24 hours. As we speak today, since May 15th of 2023, LADWP has no backlogs when it comes to priority 1, and would like to maintain it that way, and we'll have a system put together to make sure that our priority 1 numbers are immediately addressed within 24 hours.
Is that the same as saying that we are in compliance with respect to, our obligations under priority 1? Okay.
That's correct. Today's update is primarily about priority 2 levels, and these are broken into 4 different parts. The first 2A and 2B, refer to wildfire areas, ranging from 6 months of duration for repair jobs to take place, until 12 months. And 2C is nonconformance that may compromise worker safety, with a range of 12 months, and 2D are overall remaining nonconformances that can take up to 3 years to repair. So I would pass it on to Nazir Fazli to cover what progress we have made over the past 5 weeks, specifically on priority 2 fix-it tickets and the jobs we have in front of us. Nazir?
Thank you, Simon. Good afternoon. Just to add to what Simon was saying as far as priority 1, the process we use is as soon as the priority 1 job is created, it is assigned to electric trouble for same-day attention. So a patrolman will respond, they will make corrections, they will make repairs and complete the jobs if they can on complex jobs, on jobs that require, for example, pole replacement or pole rebuild. Those jobs, they make temporary repairs, and those jobs are reclassified to a lower classification. So on this slide, we're looking at the total number of priority 2 jobs. We started early in month of March. We reported 8,901 priority 2A jobs, and And after reviewing all of those jobs, analyzing data, identifying duplicates, removing all the completed jobs, and also removing, isolating jobs that were outside of Tier 3 areas, currently we have 203 priority 2A jobs in the system. Priority 2B jobs, same thing. We started in March with 19,900 jobs. We used the same process of eliminating all of the duplicates and completed jobs and grouping jobs together. And currently we have 3,800 or 3,480 jobs open on priority 2B. That is Tier 2 fire zones. Priority 2C, we have a larger number. We are analyzing a lot of data. As I said earlier, we are reclassifying a lot of 2As and 2Bs that they are going to be reclassified as 2C or a 2D, and many of 2C jobs will be reclassified as 2D. So currently, as of today, we don't have exact numbers. We do have a range, and we expect that number to be between 5,000 and 7,000 2C jobs when we're done. We will report on that, on the exact numbers when we have that on the next report. This here is telling us the type of work on those priority jobs. On the 2A, the 203 jobs that we have, 130 of those jobs require major pole repairs or replacement. 43 of the 130 poles will need to be replaced, and 87 of those poles require a complete overhaul, meaning that we have to replace the crossarm, insulators, any associated hardwares, equipment, all that have to be replaced. On average, a pole replacement takes about 100 to 150 hours, and an average pole rebuild takes 50 to 75 hours. Currently, we have 16 crews dedicated to 2A jobs, and we expect, based on working 6 days a week and 10-hour days, we expect them to complete all of those jobs no later than 8 weeks from today. On priority 2B, the numbers are much larger, of course. We have 2,480 poles that require major overhaul and replacement. 980 of those poles require replacement, and almost 1,500 requires a major overhaul. We have 8 crews dedicated to priority 2Bs currently, and as soon as all of the 16 crews working on 2A complete those jobs, they will be reassigned to work on the 2B jobs.
Can I just ask for clarification here? So on the slide before, we had 3,480 tickets and 3,480 polls. So now this next smaller number is the proportion of those total polls that had tickets where it requires a major re-overhaul or replacement?
That is all correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And going back to 2C and 2D, at this time, we don't know exactly the total number of the 2C and 2D jobs, and we'll have a report on that on the next report. The last slide here, for me, it's just a timeline. We expect all of the 2A jobs to be completed by mid-August, and we expect all of 2B jobs to be completed no later than February of 24. And with that, I will turn it over to Simon.
Yes, and as we move forward and try to address all these priority 2 repair jobs, we will be relying on to supplement our workforce. We'll be relying on a contract that we're bringing for your approval today, an L7. This contract will help us to achieve our results, including 2Cs and some 2Ds. Our goal is to finish all these jobs within a year, if not earlier. So we have brought that amendment for your consideration. And we will be providing, based on the motion that was passed by the board, we'll be providing updates on our progress on all categories, on overhead and underground. That will be a quarterly report that we'll be submitting to the board. If there are any challenges or any issues that may come up, we'll address it the board. But so far, we believe and we strongly committed to finish these jobs within a year.
Are there any questions or comments regarding this report? Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
For L7, just hold comments until, as he brought up L7.
Oh, L7. Yes, in fact, if you'd like, we can certainly go to, well, you had questions about 2023, about
The
the
wildfire,
wildfire mitigation plan. So, yeah, why don't we just hold and then we'll do the wildfire mitigation plan and then go directly to that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Then we have, next up is item J, which is our 2023 wildfire mitigation plan and comprehensive update.
Yes, Scott Hiroshima from Regulatory Compliance will address it.
Hi, Scott. I appreciate, I know this is a file, excuse me, a filed item. And it two peculiarities about it. The first one is that it indicates in the letter accompanying, the board letter, that the report gets filed, then it gets reviewed, and then you'll come back to the board to present. And I'm just curious about the timeline and why it goes in that order. I would think you would come to us before you submitted the report.
Sure, and so the state law is not specifically prescriptive on when the reviews occur, but it is prescriptive on when the wildfire mitigation plan needs to be submitted to the California Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, and that is the July 1st deadline. And so, you know, this submittal to the board was a filed item for informational purposes for the board, but we do plan to have an independent evaluator review the plan later this year and return to this board in fall and present the entire plan with the independent evaluator's report at that same time.
And so let's say, for instance, the independent evaluator finds something or finds a recommendation that they should do something differently. Isn't it too late? Would you amend the report? Well, how does this work?
So this is a plan that gets updated on an annual basis.
Yeah.
So we see it as really kind of a living document. So if there are any sort of items that need to be addressed from the independent evaluator's review, I think we would work to incorporate that either in the immediate next revision or subsequent years, since again, it is a living document.
Okay. Yeah. And then one thing that I noticed absent in the report was conversation about the rains that we've had this year, which significantly increases the vegetation we have this year. And I would imagine requires additional mitigation work on our part and vegetation management in general. And there was no mention of any of those implications anywhere, either an increase of resources towards vegetation management or focus. And certainly on prior discussions we've had around wildfire insurance, we've talked a little bit about how this year is going to be interesting. So I just wanted to note that as something I felt was absent from the overall report.
Absolutely, I think that's a very great point. We will certainly take that back with our stakeholder body and see, have a discussion around any sort of increased mitigation work as a result of rains, which I think falls into the same climate change discussion.
Okay, thank you.
If I may add, this is a topic that we have discussed in depth within Power System. We're really ramping up on our vegetation management contract to make sure that due to the precipitation, we anticipate a lot of foliage that needs to be maintained.
Great, thank you.
And that is on DWP properties, right?
So within our right-of-ways in conjunction with our power lines.
Okay, good. I don't know if the fire yesterday on the hill towards Dodger Stadium involved any of your lines, but I was in the park at an event and it was a fire.
No.
Oh, Simon? Yeah, that's your name?
Scott.
Scott, sorry. Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you. Then if I can get a motion for approval of our minutes from June 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner KATZ? Aye. Commissioner LEHRER?
Aye.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Aye.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Aye.
4 ayes, motion adopted.
All right. If we could move to L6, that would be great.
Yeah. I would like to invite Mr. John Levy and Caleb Dennis Kiasu from the Power Engineering Services Division.
All right, good afternoon, commissioners. Would you guys like a presentation, or did you guys have just some specific questions on this item?
I know that your presentation isn't terribly long, so why don't you go through it, please?
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Commissioners, President McCLAIN-HILL. My name is Caleb Dennis Kiasu. I'm the mechanical engineer that was responsible for the contract development for agreement number 47768. This is a proposed agreement with Silverado PanCal to provide engineering services and demolition of the Valley Generating Station Units 1 through 4 and a number of associated equipment, and to also construct 3 new buildings to support LADWP operations during that demolition. So this is going to be a 5-year term contract for an amount not to exceed $147,295,000. And that does include a 30% contract contingency. So the purpose of this agreement is to remove and abate hazardous material of the aging infrastructure on some retired units, units 1 through 4. And this is also to mitigate any safety issues and alleviate the burden on our own internal resources to do that abatement. And this will also help us prepare approximately 12 acres of land for future DWP projects. So in this slide, you can see the different demolition zones, which are highlighted in red. You can see it surrounding units 1 through 4, which are directly adjacent to our existing administration building and warehouse. And then you can see in the blue areas, those are the construction zones where we'll be constructing those 3 new buildings along with some employee parking and other options. So our post-demolition plans, at this time, LADWP is still planning to install a long-duration energy storage at the site within that footprint that's cleared out on units 1 through 4. And that's with a targeted service date of December 2029. But the exact sizing of the energy storage project depends on any additional analysis, footprint requirements, and impact studies that need to be done. So tentatively, we're targeting a size 55 megawatt energy storage solution, which is, of course, subject to change based on that analysis and studies.
Can you remind us of the megawatt of Valley?
So the overall, the units that we're replacing were approximately 125 megawatts, and then, or not replacing, sorry, the retired units. And then the combined cycle units 5 through 6, kind of blinking on that. I apologize.
5, 6, 7 is about the same as Haynes. 8, 9, 10 is, what is it, 360, it's about 580, I think, around there.
Okay. So the project scope and the cost breakdown of this, the agreement amount for the base scope is $113 million. That's going to include the abatement and demolition of units 1 through 4, the skim pond, and a bearing cooling tower foundation. This is all retired equipment. And then construction of the new administration and warehouse building, a new maintenance shop, and new instrument shop. And the contract contingency is a 30% for $33,900,000. So our procurement and demolition construction schedule at this time, we are obviously here trying to get this approved for your consideration and hoping to get the notice to proceed issued by the end of July, with site mobilization starting in August, where they would begin asbestos abatement fairly quickly after the planning is complete, and then also starting the new construction of the new buildings, and eventually contractor closeout in June of 2026. And that's our presentation. Are there any questions?
Dr. Pickle?
Hi.
think it would be helpful for the board to understand components as they are addressed going forward. One aspect of the estimate separated out the demolition and remediation costs separately from the new buildings, so it'd be useful to track new buildings and separately from that. And then as a subpart of that, track the costs of rooftop solar, parking lot, canopy solar, and also the EV charging solar, because as we move forward, and separately, while that's not a core part of this project, different forms of low carbon fuel and GHG monies may be used to support these things. It's nice to understand the sources of funding, but as a more general thing, not as part of your project, that we start tracking projects that are hoping to use the LCFS and GHG monies to see how many demands there are on these funds. And so we can prioritize what projects do get these funds. Because some projects that have been proposed have been quite large and may use a lot of LCFS or GHG funds. We may want to think before we exhaust that pool on one or two projects.
So I guess for me, my question is, who in the department is strategically thinking about those kinds of things?
Our system is, you want to talk about this?
But I don't want to know what system. I want to know, like, whose job is it to think about these kinds of things strategically as we are kind of planning and moving forward different kinds of projects. What are who's looking at that?
So the power system has the lead on the planning of the site. So all the system needs are prioritized based on the generation resources that we're going to put in there. But there are also a lot of common usage of the site is in there.
But I'm actually speaking more to the funding aspect. The sources that Dr. Pickle has identified, because he's not thinking about it just as it relates to this one thing. He's thinking about it, in a more comprehensive way. And I'm just curious as to, whether we're tracking that now and how we are, or if we are thinking, if we have a forward-looking, if we're thinking about future uses or future funding and how we're going to prioritize utilization of these kinds of monies and who's responsible for keeping that data and thinking about it.
Yeah, Simon will be the lead on it. All the use of money is going to be budgeted through our systems, but the source of money will be allocated based on the grants and all the sources that we have. And that's the master plan will be not only the feasibility of developing that campus, but also funding that campus needs down the road will be under Simon.
Beyond that, we're looking at all funding sources, be it from the state or the federal government, and how that can help us with all our plans that we have in the future, how it's going to be used across the board as part of our planning. It is something that we're discussing internally, especially the LCFS, where is that fund being used, and where can it be purposed so that it would meet it's aligned with our long-term plan.
I think what I'm hearing is highest and best use, and that they're going to be competing demands, and so really developing some understanding of what we're doing, but also thinking strategically about how we want to move forward becomes a really critical part of this process.
Would like to come back to the board and make a brief presentation on how we're going to integrate those type of funding sources and how it aligns with our strategic plan.
Okay, that'd be great.
And something that triggered that was the discussion where that caused the proposal for the workshop on FIT was the solar parking canopies at the zoo come in at a cost, and they were using either GHG or LCFS monies, and we looked at that in terms of costs of electric chargers that might be put in place. And at $5,000 per electric charge, you might be able to put in 8,000 electric chargers. That's almost one per block in the disadvantaged areas for the same amount of money. And I'd rather have that than a solar canopy. So it was really trading that off.
Just to touch on Dr. Pickle's first comment about the buildings, we do actually break that out. It is approximately $32 million of this contract, and we can track that as we go as well.
Yeah.
All right. And you forgive me, I don't have my board information in front of me. I haven't been able to get into my computer, but I am interested in, so I can't look, but I am interested in how this contract incorporated supplier diversity and what the outcomes were.
So, go ahead. Okay. So as far as the supplier diversity was concerned, we did have some targeted goals for this contract in particular. So our contract requirement was 14% for SBE, and that was discussed with the supplier diversity group. Now, the proposal itself did come back with Silverado PanCal committing to 25%, 25.17% for SBE, 1.07% MBE, 0.05% WBE, and 14.46. And this is the total
I
breakdown.
have the chart in front of me, and just in case you didn't hear that, 1%.
I heard the 1%
and
They want us to vote on this?
0.05.
So,
No,
let-
0.05%.
There's a caveat to
Me to
that.
vote yes.
There's a caveat to that. Since we focus on SBE, that's a supplier diversity focus when we go out with these contracts, all SBE that may also be WBE are categorized as SBE. So unofficially, when we break them out, about 7% is actually women.
Why doesn't the chart say that? It says WBE is
6%.
1.05.
Because that would be double counting the percentages. Because you have an SBE that is also a WBE, you can only count them as one category.
So you're saying this WBE is not an SBE?
They're both.
Both.
So
But you can't.
counted it here, but you didn't.
We count it as an SBE because that is what the target is. We don't target WBE, we target SBE. When I say we, I mean the department.
The department's program at this point is an SBE DVBE program, but SBE does include WBE and MBEs.
So the percentage that's WBE isn't a small business, is
correct.
Correct. Yes, we set goals only for a small business and disabled veteran. In the future, perhaps we can come up with a program that will set goals and counts WBEs and MBEs as well. But hard goals can be set only for a small business and disabled veteran.
And I have another question. What about local?
We do have a local business preference program, which is incorporated in this contract. And local businesses do get an extra credit as part of the evaluation.
And that's LA County. This is an 150?
About 147 million.
Yeah, $1 million contract.
Yeah. On that as well, only 2 bids for a $150 million business. That's just, seems like light. Now, you'd think folks would be clamoring, and when it says up further in the procurement process that it was only posted to the LADWP website and the Regional Alliance Marketplace. So I guess that means there was no outreach to and other firms to participate. It was just whatever was posted.
Typically, as part of the advertisement process, we hold bidders conferences as well as advertisement on the city's website. We do have.
But was that done here? It doesn't say. Was that actually done here?
Typically,
have
the supply chain was advertised. Yes.
And then only 2 attendees?
So for the bidders, we did actually do site visits as well and allow people to actually view the site as part of the proposals, and there were more than two, yes.
Right, but those were all subcontractors.
There were subs and there were primes as well that participated in that.
And do you have that list of who those primes were?
The primes that attended, I would have to talk to supply chain services about that. I don't have that with me.
Did any of them express why they didn't bid? Was it just a short timeline, or what was their reasoning for not putting in a formal bid?
We can reach out to those bidders or the primes that did not submit a bid. I don't know that we made that outreach. As far as the timeline for advertisement, there were opportunities that it did extend because we were answering other questions and comments that we received as part of the bidding and advertising process.
I think it would be valuable to do that outreach with the procurement team.
I think historically, there hasn't, we've had two other demos as well that were similar, you know, Haynes and then also Scattergood. And I think Haynes, we had 4 bidders. So it wasn't a huge number of bidders on either the prefabs. It's relatively specialized work. And a lot of times the prime will consolidate would be other primes as subs. So they come and work together as like a partnership. For instance, Silverado Pancal.
Yeah. A couple of things. I mean, this again just illustrates for me what is just confounding, and that is, I mean, I don't know if it's power systems that's responsible for the outcomes as it relates to, you know, doing procurement, et cetera, if it's supply chain that's responsible for the outcomes in terms of following up with bidders and managing that process. And it just seems like, I don't know how we convey that this is an area that we are very serious about and that we find lacking in the extreme as it relates to engagement with potential you know, contractors or service providers in response to RFPs. I mean, we just keep awarding these very large chunks with very little participation across broad swaths of the community, and I don't know who's responsible for changing that.
May I add something in this case and try to prompt a response? It's only a 446-page document. I'm not finding the specific page right now, but one of the small business enterprises is apparently also a Native American enterprise. And it's one of the most significant of the subcontracts. And you guys can pull that one out. I'm not going to find it.
Potentially try to find it.
It was the electrical contractor for, I think, $8 million.
I don't know if
8% of $9 million.
I don't know if Edith would want to comment on this, but typically, so when we have bids like this, they're advertised through, you know, a system that we have and the city has, and bidders who do work or want to work with the city, they register, and so they identify the kinds of work they do. So bids like this would be pushed out to that community, and then when they show interest, they would come either for a meeting or a job walk. We do record who's at those, so we know who's looking as a prime or potentially as a sub, and then, you know, for whatever reasons, we get a number of bids in or don't get a number of bids in. Sometimes we do ask why people didn't bid if we thought they were interested. But it is a community that identifies they want to work with us in these areas, and these bids do push out to them. So maybe Edith can describe that, how that works.
Thank you, Marty. Edith Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services. Marty is correct. Once we do a solicitation, it goes out to Ramp LA, so it's advertised there. And for this specific solicitation, there were 2 prime contractors who downloaded the bid, and there's 118 subcontractors who looked at it. In addition to that, we also have the 18-month look ahead where our projects are listed, so the primes get advance notice that these contracts are coming up for bid.
So, I mean, but wouldn't you reasonably conclude that only 2 entities of even potential ability to participate participate, the bid is not a sufficient enough pool to really extract the best possible contract for us to utilize? I mean, there seems to be some thing that is inhibiting greater participation, because $147 million contract or whatever, even though it's not clear what the amount will be, is a sizable contract for any business to even just put in with the hopes of achieving. So not getting participation suggests maybe there's something wrong with our process or something that's preventing folks from participating. So I think we need to take a better understanding of the process and how we can do better to reach out to the potential vendors when there's sizable contracts being awarded.
Well, we can do that. Certainly, we can go back and look at that. But normally, when we only get a couple of bids, the buyers do reach out to others that have looked at the bid. But in this case, it only shows that 2 prime contractors that were even interested at the ramp LA level when they were able to download the bid. In addition to that, we also have a question and answer period in the RFP. So if there's something that isn't clear in the process, or say, for example, the specifications were not clear, if there's any questions, we do have a period for questions and answers as well for any potential bidders.
I will say also that the highest scoring prime has worked on our previous projects before very successfully. They did their work very well, and that is just a point I'd like to make.
To Commissioner NEEMAN Brady's comment, though, it's the fact that only 2 people looked at it seriously. And the only thing I can think of in working on projects of not quite as big a scale is that some of these contractors are having a hard time finding consultants, the sub-consultants, or even internally keeping things, sort of streamlining their activities because of staffing. It's post-pandemic something, a sort of a ripple, and it's just there's a little bit of an upset in certain sort of professional with certain professional. And these are professional engineers and such, so maybe they have too much work and too little staff, or it's that it could be happening, and we've experienced a little bit of that. So
yeah, and coming from another large public organization, I do know that sometimes our constraints and complexity can be a turnoff, frankly, for bidders. So I've been in a similar position before on large contracts at UCLA, although not this scale, but it'd be good to know.
And usually on these high dollars and these hundreds of millions, there's not too many players that can handle this to begin with. So I would never expect to see any like a number of 10. The most I've seen on these may be 4 or 5.
Well, except that all that does
so it's
is
relative.
So what I keep hearing is I keep hearing us defend what we do in a way that produces outcomes that are less than what we want. And it's like it's their fault. There's some external obligation to accommodate the way we do it, as opposed to us determining how to do it in a way that facilitates more response and more participation. That's the shift that needs to be occurring. And honestly, it's getting difficult to continue to look at these kinds of items and to say, okay, because I don't get the impression that that is producing the result that we've indicated we'd like to see, which is more local, more small, and more diverse participation in the large income stream generated by the work that we do. There's, income inequality is very real. The huge wealth gaps in certain communities, very real. We are building wealth and ecosystems of employment and community building based on our own economic activity. If we keep pushing it in the same direction, and keep excluding the same people because we do it a certain way, that is a problem.
If I may, I mean, even though we only got 2 primes, there was a significant number of subs. So we are bringing a lot of work to these smaller organizations. This project is also part of the project labor agreement with the City of LA. So we are putting preference on hiring local union work from disadvantaged communities. So these are all parts of the picture.
Underserved communities.
Underserved communities, yes.
That's encouraging to hear, and I think, what might be helpful long-term is just to look at, we recognize that there are significant efficiencies to doing larger contracts and not doing multiple RFPs, but perhaps there could be some analysis looking at the trade-offs there and whether what we gain from doing large-scale contracts, how that compares to what is lost in the reduced competitiveness in bids, et cetera.
I have one last question on those large contracts. When you have, the general contractor, everybody's under them, right? Okay. Correct. So they get, yeah. Right.
I think moving forward, the systems, power system and water system, we can work with supply chain services as well as for supply diversity with Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office to reform and what type of recommendations that we can make to the current system. And we can work with the City Attorney's Office to come up with a program that emulates other successful utilities and other agencies that have achieved a higher target rate and learn from them and come up with a better system. Perhaps that would be the best way to move forward.
Yeah.
I'd also like to add, we need to figure out some sort of different outreach plan because there are many demolition experts, folks that can do this work throughout the world. Maybe they do not get the local points, but perhaps they bring other expertise from elsewhere in the world that then would give them an advantage on pricing or some other timeline or who knows what. And so to be satisfied with 2 means that we're not doing our job going out. And I don't know where that falls because at the end of the day, it's procurement may not know all the entities that exist for all different types of businesses that they're procuring for. But as well, power may not know the specialized services, but we have to do a better job.
Yep.
And we will. We are aware because we work together with the systems. So in the past, we have had for some of these major projects, we have had outreach fairs. And the systems come and they explain these projects in detail. So perhaps we can get back to doing that, and we will.
Yeah. It has to be a
While there are a lot of demolition projects, there are not many demolition projects of high flues. And you really can't make a core business on demolishing, or not many entities can make a business on the demolition of these high flues. So this project is unusual because the major component is the demolition of 4 high smokestacks.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
No, I guess I'd ask the folks, so obviously the core work is demolishing the old power plant and the asbestos issues with the stacks, that sort of thing. The other things we have are the set of new buildings that are being constructed. What % of this work is that, which would be maybe easier to differentiate from the actual core demo work? Is that a small percentage of this contract?
It's about 20% for the new buildings.
And I think to your point, those are the kind of things that would look would look to where contracts would be separated. I don't think the demo piece could be split up very easily because of work interference, and you lose all your economy of scale and couldn't have 2 contractors on site at the same time. But there may be other pieces of that.
Yeah.
That may be disassociated.
Well, to Marty's,
I'd like to, go ahead.
To Marty's point, we have to have these buildings constructed before the demo starts because we need to get the existing staff out of the existing admin building. So that's part of the reason this Silverado Pancal is the building contractor, which is why I believe they're in a joint venture. They have a building contractor working with the demo contractor as the primes, as a joint venture for the primes.
2 primes came together.
Right.
One more question from me, just in terms of the chart that you said encompasses some folks that are I don't want to say double counted, but you didn't want to double count it, so they're in the SBE. It looks like on, next to their names, there is an indication of WBE or what have you. I'm assuming that those are all the designations that would be for those buckets. So in other words, there isn't a WBE on the SBE list that isn't, if there is one, it is noted with the WBE.
Yeah, so they should be noted as all of the, that they qualify for is listed next
After
to
their name,
after
okay.
their name,
Because
yes.
we are also trying to track those metrics, even if they get captured into SBE.
Right, they
All
do
right.
have the qualifications for it, and it's just that the SBE is what we have as far as the requirements for the participation.
And that's how we came up with that 6% and then the 11% MBE, was pulling those numbers out, separating them.
So what are you two taking as a next step from us?
I believe that we can work with supply chain to figure out better ways to work on outreach. I think that's the biggest takeaway that we have for this particular.
And can you also take a look at the list of attendees of those potential primes that did not end up submitting the?
And we can work with supply chain services, take a look at that, and also discuss any reasons, or at least find out reasons why they did not bid.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be interesting. I think it would be also interesting perhaps to compare another large agency that I hear gets very high marks for their outreach, and that's Metro. And I just will say that they reach out to all these LBE, SBEs, MBEs in a good way, and there's these, they also make sure that they're getting paid on time. They show up literally at people's offices, making sure that the general is actually doing, you've paid the general, is the general paying them on time, because there's been issues, so.
And last but not least, we'll take Dr. Pickle's recommendation to track the solar and the EV installations.
Yeah.
Great.
But also reporting back on the progress on all components of the project at major points in the project.
Okay, yep, we can do that.
Okay. Is there a motion with respect to L6?
I move for approval based on some of the issues that have come up and the suggestions that have been made for, consideration.
Second. Commissioner Katz?
Aye.
Commissioner Lehr?
I made the motion, but aye, yes.
President McCLAIN-HILL?
I'm still thinking about it. Are you going to call Commissioner?
Oh, sure. Commissioner Neiman Brady?
I just said I'm still thinking about it.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
I think she's still thinking as well.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a challenge when you're dealt with something you feel like you have no alternative on.
I will tell you, it's taken how many years to bring this contract to the board?
Probably coming up on 15, I would say.
15 years.
15 or so, yeah. They've been trying to get these stacks down.
So there was not a whole lot of urgency around getting this to us. It's been several years since we indicated that it should get done, right?
Well, we do have, planning on projects that need to go in the next 6 or 7 years here. So this is why we're trying to make the space. So that's where the urgency has come more recently with the LA 100 and the plans for that.
I was going to offer that we could bring this back next board meeting with some answers to these questions, if that would be better.
That would be great.
Yes.
Why don't we do that?
That's
a good compromise.
That is
Okay.
helpful. Thank you,
Good
Marty.
suggestion.
We withdraw our motion?
Thank
or-
you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We now have L7.
Of Bassam Abu Shakra.
There was a comment on this one, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does that come
You
first
can
or
be
after?
the
Public
comment.
comment would come first. Do we have public comment on this?
First public commenter is Dion Imami, who will be followed by Jerome Cohen.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners, and management. My name is Dion Imami. I'm the CEO of Parkia, Inc. We're a current contractor for
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You're the CEO for?
Parkia Incorporated.
Okay,
We're a
thank you.
current contractor performing similar work as stated for under agreement number 02883 under item 7. To give a little bit of background, August of 2022, there were 3 contracts that was let out by Department of Water and Power for maintenance, repair, replacement of overhead distribution facilities. These are annual contracts that they usually get extended by additional 2 years, so they become 3 or sometimes even 5 years. And this practice has been going on for a long time at the department. Last year, when the current contractors ran out after their 3 years, the new RFPs or IFPs went out to bid, and half a dozen to 10 contractors responded. So we had south of Mulholland, central, the fire area, and north of Mulholland. Everybody responded. They were all due at the same time. After an extensive evaluation by the supply chain, as well as the contract administration and contract ops, they made a evaluation that certain people, certain contractors were indeed compliant, and they were determined to be the lowest competitive, responsive, qualified bidders. As a result, Parkia got the south of Mulholland area of the contract, and Alva got the north. Parkia also got the fire area of this contract. So about a month and a half ago, since August 22nd, Alva and Parkia finally got the award to proceed with one contract for south and one contract for north. That just happened about 6 weeks ago. The middle part of this contract, which was a separate contract, was never awarded or is not awarded. And all of a sudden, I see and for the central, Parkia did go through responsibility hearing. We had to comply with some additional questions because the staff and supply chain and operations felt maybe it'll be a big task for us to take on so many contracts. So we went through all that exercise. And at the end, it was determined that we are capable. We put up the financial bonds, performance bond. We had the financial resources, the skills, the source. So they came to a conclusion that, yes, Parkia is able and qualified and responsive to take on the second contract. Last Friday, I come to realize that, and I've been communicating with supply chain, contract administration, finding out the status, because when we bid these contracts, we bid them, we plan on having both contracts because that's how we allocate our overhead and manpower and equipment. It takes a lot of investment that we incur because we were undertaking a large contract. So, and this was all explained to procurement, the supply chain, the contracts, and that we have to go out and enforce. So 2 days ago, I received a board agenda that the department has proceeded with awarding a contract to Petrelli, who was the unseated contractor the last time the contracts were, were placed. They did not compete competitively, so therefore they were not a potential awardee. However, 10 months later, there's a decision made that there was an initial contract for $5 million without going through any competitive pricing was awarded to Petrelli last month. And in addition to that, they were amending it for an amount of $45 million. So for a total of $50 million without going through the competitive process that the city, this charter, the public contracting codes, and all the requirements are there. It does not meet the SBE, WBE requirements. I don't know if there has been an NOC meeting on this or not. Regardless, if that's the desire of the department to proceed at such high numbers that are a lot more expensive than the prices that the rest of the contractors have submitted, so be it. However, why are we bringing a second contractor, taking away the work from a valid contract that has been evaluated, determined to be the lowest, most competitive bid?
Excuse me, Speaker, your time allotment has expired.
Yes, and it's substantially less expensive.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's another speaker?
Yes. The next speaker is Jerome S. Cohen.
Good afternoon. I'm going to extend just briefly Mr. Dion's remarks. And in summary, it appears that Parkia's bid was the lowest qualified, progressive, responsive, and qualified bid. And it was that bid was about $86.5 million over 3 years.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cohen, could you identify whether you are also with Parkia or which company?
Pardon me?
Could you identify if you're with the same company or if you're a...
Identify?
What company are you with? Who are you representing?
I'm counsel for Parkia.
Okay, great.
The preceding speaker. And I'm sorry if I hadn't made that clear. I thought that was known. If we divide the 3 years, it's substantially lower than $30 million a year. We have Petrelli the proposed awardee of a contract now, which, if the amendment before you is adopted, is going to be $50 million for 1 year. And I think that results in a need for the board, respectfully, to explain why the contract should go to Petrelli and instead of the approved qualified bid from Parkia. If the record stands as it is right now, it's an awkward result. And I ask that or I suggest that the appropriate thing to do is to take the time to explain that. Parkia has not received any response from the department to its many requests for some resolution and some award of the contract with finality. I think it's time to do that. I don't think it's time, respectfully, to award the contract to Petrelli.
Thank you. So I just heard a lot, can't digest it all, haven't seen it all in writing. I have a couple of questions. One, to the city attorney's office. I assume that this matter is properly before us, correct? Or were there other?
No other speakers.
Other questions?
Mark Royce, who worked on the contract, is here to address any questions you have.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, the board or the department had authority to single source the original contract to Petrelli under the charter, under 371E2 of the charter, that says contracts as determined by the contracting authority for performance of professional, scientific, expert, technical, or other special services of a temporary and occasional character for which the contracting authority finds that competitive bidding is not practical or advantageous. So because of the urgency with getting the priority work done, it was determined that we met this requirement so that we could award to Petrelli. So this is just a continuation of that, as there still is apparently the urgent need to get this work done. So the department does have the authority under the single sourcing contract to do.
So this is, so I'm just to be clear, this is related not just to priority 1, but this is to continue the work through priority 2, et cetera, and is the surge that is required in order to take care of these issues in within the year that the board had instructed, as opposed to the 5 years that would be achieved were we to continue to operate in the manner that we had been previously operating. Is that right? Okay. And, all right, that's fine.
And if I could, the contractor with Alva and Parkia, those are continuation of longer term, not just fix it ticket work, but longer term infrastructure replacement. They're multi-year contracts, and that continues the use of multi-year contracts that we've been doing. This is specifically to address this immediate need with the fix it tickets and add additional workforce for that year.
Okay.
And the Petrelli one can't go past 1 year. It would need to go out to bid to do that.
In the comments, it was mentioned, the number was thrown out, 86.5 million for 3 years versus 50 million for 1 year. Is that for the same work? Is the reasoning around Petrelli that they can do something in 1 year that someone else was proposing in 3 years? Is there a time thing
I'd like
here?
to answer that question. Yes, Bassam Abu Shakra, Manager of Power Regulatory and Contracts. So we did based on lessons learned and the dollar amount of these contracts going over the years. It used to be one contract covering the whole city of LA. But to make sure that we get more participation, and we did get 6 on one, 6 bidders, and 7 on the other one, 286 and 290 that were approved by the board February 14 and February 28. And this is continuous of historically dealing with PSRP. But there was a need to take care of the fix-it tickets, and Simon talked about the overhead distribution repair update. We took care of the priority 1. We need to take care of the priority 2, and we have less than a year to do that. And this is going to be supplementing our LADWP crews. So to answer your question, Commissioner KATZ, the difference between Parkia bid and Petrelli was the second lowest bidder, is 3%. So it's not the dollar amount. Parkia bid 133 million for 3 years, and that's on the high fire zone. And I'll get the other one. Petrelli bid 129, so it was 2.7%. Petrelli agreed
to use the same pricing from August of 2022, which is 10 months. They once said the same pricing. So we have what we call unit prices. It's not defined. It just depends on the labor, how many hours it takes to fix a job, and the equipment they use, the trucks, what it takes. So it's not really a good comparison, 80-50. The difference is less than 3%. And Parkia contract is 1 year with 2 optional. That's what the board approved. This contract is only for 12 months and only will be to utilize on an as-needed basis. Right now, we didn't want to do another amendment come to you because something happened and we need to add money. There's plenty of money here. I don't think we're going to use it all. And because based on the number of crews that are being utilized, so we did the calculation. This is plenty of money till April of next year.
So the 50 million is a maximum amount for the contract, but the contract is by unit. It's a not to exceed. So it's based on the work that is completed.
And we did really put the dollar amount in case, because sometimes it's hard to get another amendment. But like the city attorney said, by city charter sections 371, we're limited to 1 year.
No, this is literally the contract that's supporting the response to the emergency repairs that were identified. So got that part. There was some mention of an NOC. I assume that
we do have.
Exactly,
we do have
because
approval
we don't
NOC.
bring contracts without NOCs. Okay, good.
This one, I'd like to add, this is Petrelli is a woman-owned business. They have a 20% mandatory, and right now they have 5 contracts on board as SPE, because like Simon said, we can only put mandatory SPE. So there is already 5 contracts on the books. They're working and they're doing good.
So the group has thus far mostly been focused on the single source nature of this, which I think is an important discussion to have. But I'm finding that the materials that we were presented with, the board letter and then the supporting resolution, are deficient in explaining what they're actually doing for the 50 million. It just says addressing the fix-it tickets. And that is just a little loose as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't provide enough, meat. And so I think it would be helpful to have an explanation now, and I would encourage all board letters coming in the future to have a little more meat on their bones about what we're getting, what we're actually addressing here. There's a lot in there about the contracting process, and it seems like this was like a justification for the single source rather than actually what the contract will be doing.
Okay. We'll take that into consideration.
I think, though, that right now, before
It'll be
vote
helpful
is
to
cast,
explain.
it would be very helpful to articulate the actual work that will be performed under the contract. Somebody.
Yes, I can add this. These are all the priority 2 jobs pending, and the ones that have been explained today. We had initially about 76,000 fix-it tickets that translate into about 10 or 11,000 poles that need to be refurbished. Some have to be changed out. These are the jobs that would be included in this contract. One distinction for the Petrelli contract would be this is a citywide contract. Priority 2 jobs are spread throughout the city. So this contractor can go to any part of the city, perform these jobs. The Parkia's bid that was submitted is only for the wildfire areas, and they will not allow them to go to other parts of the city to perform priority 2 jobs. So this one was brought in tandem with the presentation today. We will include the justifications in detail in the future, but I think what we presented earlier is analogy to
Are they doing overhead only, or are they doing underground?
These are overhead only, correct.
Overhead only?
And how did the 50 number get determined? It's a very round number.
That was determined specifically based on the maximum number of crews that the contractor can provide. It's 24 crews. We know how much money we would need on a monthly basis based on what our experience was on priority 1 in previous contracts. So that's how it was calculated within a year. We had a limit of the year, how much we can spend, what's their capacity within 12 months.
Okay, so this is assuming full utilization of their crews that that can be done within the year.
Correct. Our plan is to get all priority 2 backlogs done within 12 months.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Then, is there a motion to approve?
Can I make one more comment?
No, sir, I'm sorry, we don't have interactive public comment. I'll move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Katz,
Aye.
Commissioner Lair,
Aye.
President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Commissioner Neiman Brady.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion adopted.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our open agenda, and we can move into closed session. We will keep this room and ask everyone else to excuse themselves. City Attorney, you have the magic word.
Yes, thank you, Board President. The board is commencing closed session. After the closed session, the board will publicly report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention thereon of every member present in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957.1.
Okay, and this is a brief closed session, correct?
Just one item.
One item, terrific. I think our mics are still.
Mics are hot.